Hi everyone. Great to have you here at H. Potter. Get comfortable because today we're presenting what if Gringotts found 200 memory blocks on Harry at age 6 and he remembered every past life. Before we start, a gentle reminder, if you love stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm show our videos to more people. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Chapter 1, Awakening Memories. Harry Potter huddled in the cramped darkness of his cupboard, knees pulled tight against his chest. Outside, Uncle Vernon bellowed about some missing pudding while Dudley snickered in that way that always meant Harry would be blamed for something he hadn't done. Boy! Get out here now! Harry squeezed his eyes shut, heart hammering. He just wanted to be somewhere else. Anywhere else. The familiar pressure of his uncle's rage pushed against the cupboard door, and Harry felt something inside him strain and snap. A strange tugging sensation pulled behind his navel, and the world compressed around him. For a terrifying moment, Harry felt squeezed through something impossibly narrow, then suddenly, he wasn't in his cupboard anymore. Cool marble pressed against his palms. Harry blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of his surroundings. Towering pillars rose toward a vaulted ceiling. Strange-looking people, no, creatures, bustled about with ledgers and scales. One of them turned and spotted him. Merlin's beard. A child has operated into Gringotts. Harry scrambled backward, bumping into a tall counter. The short, pointy-eared creature behind it peered down at him with calculating black eyes. "I'm sorry," Harry stuttered. "I don't know how, accidental magic," snapped the creature. "But operating through Gringotts wards? Impossible for a child." Its gaze narrowed, fixing on Harry's forehead where his scar hid beneath unruly bangs. "Unless..." The creature barked something in a harsh language. Two more of the strange beings appeared, flanking Harry before he could think to run. "Follow," one ordered, its voice leaving no room for argument. Harry's legs moved automatically. What were these creatures? Where was he? The grand marble hallway branched into narrower corridors, and Harry found himself ushered into a small office lined with strange instruments and glowing crystals. "Sit," commanded the tallest creature, pointing to a stone chair. Harry perched nervously on the edge. "What's happening? Who are you?" The creature's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "I am Blood Fong, head healer of Gringotts. You are in the Wizarding Bank, and we are goblins." He studied Harry with uncomfortably intense focus. "You are Harry Potter." Harry's mouth fell open. "How do you, your scar? Your magic? Your eyes?" Blood Fong circled Harry slowly. "But something is wrong. Your magic should not have penetrated our wards, even accidentally. It speaks of power beyond your years." Another goblin entered, carrying a shallow stone basin filled with silvery liquid. Blood Fong dipped one long finger into it, then reached toward Harry's forehead. "Wait." Harry flinched away. "What are you doing?" "Checking for interference." Bloodfang's expression darkened. Many would seek to control the boy who lived. Before Harry could ask what that meant, the goblin's finger touched his scar. Pain exploded behind his eyes, not from the touch, but from something deeper, as though Blood Fong had found a thread and was pulling it, unraveling something tightly bound inside Harry's mind. "Blockages," Blood Fong hissed. "Many, many blockages." His black eyes widened. "No, not just blockages, memory blocks. Hundreds of them, layered throughout your entire magical core." The other goblins muttered anxiously among themselves. "Someone placed memory blocks on me?" Harry asked, rubbing his forehead. "Not someone. Many someones. Over many lifetimes." Blood Fong exchanged significant glances with his colleagues. "Young Potter, what do you know of reincarnation?" Harry shook his head. "Nothing. Souls return, life after life. Most forget their past journeys, that is the natural way. But yours. Blood Fong pointed to Harry's scar. Yours has been deliberately blocked. The oldest blocks date back centuries. The newest, his finger traced the lightning bolt, were placed when this mark was made. Harry's thoughts spun wildly. You're saying I've lived before? And someone made me forget? Many someones. Many times. Blood Fong straightened. This explains your power. Your soul is ancient, Potter. Very ancient. The goblin conferring with the others approached. The Ragnarok Protocol. Blood Fong nodded grimly. Prepare the deep chamber. Harry found himself following the goblins down spiraling passages that plunged far beneath the bank. The air grew cool and heavy with age. Finally, they entered a circular chamber lined with glowing runes. In its center stood a raised platform surrounded by 7 pillars of black crystal. Step onto the platform, Blood Fong instructed. We will remove the blocks. Harry hesitated. Will it hurt? Yes, Blood Fong answered bluntly. But leaving them would hurt more. These blocks strain against your natural magic, causing damage with each passing year. Taking a deep breath, Harry stepped onto the platform. The goblins positioned themselves between the crystal pillars, beginning a low chant in their guttural language. The runes along the walls brightened in response, and Harry felt a peculiar vibration pass through his body. Harry James Potter, intoned Blood Fong. We begin with the newest blocks, placed by Albus Dumbledore on November 1, 1981. The name struck Harry like a physical blow. Who's Dumbledore? The one who left you with those muggles, Blood Fong replied with obvious distaste. The one who decided your fate without consulting Gringotts, against your parents' wishes. Anger flared in Harry's chest. Someone had deliberately placed him with the Dursleys. The chanting intensified. Pain lanced through Harry's scar, white-hot and searing. He bit his lip to keep from crying out as something inside his mind began to crack and dissolve. Suddenly, memories poured through the breach, not just memories, but knowledge and understanding far beyond his 6 years. He remembered the night his parents died. Remembered Dumbledore's twinkling eyes as the old wizard murmured incantations over him, sealing away his magical potential, ensuring he would grow up ignorant of his heritage. Remembered the careful calculations in Dumbledore's mind, the boy who lived must be malleable, grateful, humble. Must not grow too powerful too quickly. The Hogwarts blocks are dissolving, announced a goblin. Moving to the earlier blocks from his current incarnation. Another wave of pain brought more memories, his mother singing ancient protection spells over his cradle, his father teaching him to summon toys before he could even walk. Magic had come naturally to baby Harry, he'd been floating his bottle to himself by 6 months old. Deeper now, commanded Blood Fong. The cross-lifetime blocks begin. The pain changed, becoming less sharp but more profound, as though his very soul was being stretched and reshaped. Memories cascaded into his consciousness, not from this life, but from others. Harry gasped as he suddenly remembered being a dark-haired girl named Helena in medieval England, practicing secret runic magic while her mother, Rowena Ravenclaw, pretended not to notice. Before he could process this, another life emerged, Matthias, a battle mage in Roman-occupied Britain, wielding elemental magic against legionnaires. Then another, Akhenaten, an Egyptian priest who channeled sunlight into healing spells. And another, Dao, a Chinese alchemist who discovered 17 uses of dragon blood centuries before anyone else. The memories came faster now, dozens of lifetimes bleeding together. Harry staggered on the platform, overwhelmed by the flood of identities and knowledge pouring into his 6-year-old mind. He'd been men, women, children of all races and backgrounds. A Viking shield maiden. A Native American shaman. A Japanese onmyoji. A Persian astronomer. Lives dedicated to magic in all its forms across thousands of years. He's destabilizing, shouted one of the goblins. The integration is too rapid. No choice, Blood Fong growled. The blocks are falling like dominoes now. We must complete the process. Harry felt his consciousness expanding beyond what his young body could contain. Too many memories, too many skills, too many languages and spells and experiences crushing his sense of self. Who was he amidst these hundreds of past identities? Focus, Potter. Bloodfang's voice cut through the chaos. Find your anchor. What remains constant across all these lives? Harry flailed mentally through the whirlpool of memories, searching for something to hold on to. And there, threading through every life like a golden cord, he found it, a purpose, a drive to protect, to defend, to fight against a darkness that took different forms but always returned. In every life, he'd stood against those who abused power. He grabbed that thread, and suddenly the rushing memories organized themselves around it. The pain receded, replaced by a strange clarity. Harry straightened on the platform, his green eyes now glowing with an inner light. The final blocks are dissolving, Bloodfang announced. The oldest ones. These memories came with a different quality, more primal, from a time when magic and reality were less firmly separated. Harry remembered being Atlantes, a mage in the final days of Atlantis, fighting desperately against the dark sorcerer Morrigan who sought to channel the island's destruction for immortality. As the last block dissolved, Harry gasped. Morrigan had succeeded, partially. The dark sorcerer had achieved a twisted form of immortality, returning throughout history to continue his work. And in nearly every life, Harry had opposed him, sometimes knowingly, sometimes as an unwitting obstacle. The chanting stopped. The runes dimmed. Harry stood motionless on the platform, his small body housing an awareness that spanned millennia. It is done, Bloodfang said quietly. All 200 blocks have been removed. Harry looked at his hands, a child's hands, yet he now remembered them wielding swords, staffs, wands of countless designs. He remembered speaking languages long dead, casting spells forgotten by modern wizardry, loving and losing companions across the centuries. How do you feel, Potter? Asked Bloodfang. Harry considered the question. Like myself, he finally answered, his voice still a child's but somehow carrying the weight of ages. Just, more of myself than I knew existed. Bloodfang nodded approvingly. Your integration is remarkable. Most would be lost in the chaos of so many lives. I've done this before, Harry realized suddenly. In my life as Tenzin, a Tibetan monk. I recovered past life memories then too, though not as many. The knowledge will settle, Bloodfang explained. Your current identity will remain primary, but you'll have access to the skills and memories of your past incarnations. Harry stepped down from the platform, feeling simultaneously ancient and newborn. The most recent blocks, Dumbledore placed them. Why? Bloodfang's expression darkened. Control. Prophecy. Fear, perhaps. Dumbledore is a great wizard, but not immune to the temptation of shaping others to his vision. He left me with people who hate magic. Harry's voice remained calm, but the torches in the chamber flared higher. People who kept me in a cupboard. The goblins exchanged alarmed glances at this display of unconscious magic. Your situation must change, Bloodfang agreed. But carefully. Dumbledore watches your placement closely. If you simply disappear, he will move heaven and earth to find you. Harry nodded, memories from his diplomatic lives already calculating possibilities. I need to return to Privet Drive for now. But things will be different. What will you do? A small smile curved Harry's lips. First, I'm going to have a conversation with my relatives. The Dursleys were in various stages of panic when Harry reappeared in the kitchen with a soft pop. Aunt Petunia screamed. Uncle Vernon turned an alarming shade of purple. Dudley just gaped, his pudding spoon frozen halfway to his mouth. You! Vernon bellowed, lunging forward. Where have you been, boy? Harry didn't flinch. Instead, He raised one hand in a gesture that had once commanded armies. Vernon stopped mid-stride, confusion replacing rage. "We need to talk," Harry said calmly. "All of us." "About magic." Petunia made a strangled noise. "We don't use that word in this house." "You should," Harry replied. "Considering you've been receiving a stipend from my magical trust fund for my care." This was a calculated guess based on his memories of magical guardianship laws, but the way Petunia's face drained of color confirmed it. "What nonsense," Vernon began, but Harry cut him off. "The goblins at Gringotts Bank were quite interested to learn about my living conditions. The cupboard, specifically." Vernon's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Now see here, I don't want trouble," Harry continued, drawing on the diplomatic skills of Eleonora, who had negotiated peace between warring magical kingdoms in 15th century Spain. "I simply want changes. Reasonable ones." "What kind of changes?" Petunia asked warily. "Dudley's second bedroom becomes mine. I'll need proper clothes, proper meals, and to be enrolled in school. In return, I'll be discreet about my abilities and make sure nothing unusual happens to draw attention to this house." Vernon seemed to regain his bravado. "And if we refuse? What's a scrawny little freak going to do?" Harry sighed. This approach wasn't working. Time for Matthias the Battle Mage's more direct technique. He fixed his gaze on the kitchen table and whispered words in a language dead for 15 centuries. The heavy oak table rose 6 inches off the floor, hovering steadily. "I've remembered things," Harry said quietly. "Things about magic. Things about who I am. Things about what I can do." The table settled back down with a solid thunk. The Dursleys stared in horrified silence. "I don't want to be your enemy," Harry continued. "I'm just asking for basic decency." "Is that really so difficult?" Vernon and Petunia exchanged glances filled with fear and calculation. Finally, Petunia gave a tight nod. "You can have the bedroom," she said. "But there will be rules." "Of course," Harry agreed. "Reasonable ones." The negotiations that followed were tense but productive. Harry would have Dudley's second bedroom, adequate clothing, regular meals, and proper school supplies. In exchange, he would help with reasonable chores, maintain good grades, and most importantly, never perform obvious magic where the neighbors might see. Later that evening, Harry sat on the edge of his new bed, processing the day's extraordinary events. His mind still buzzed with the memories of hundreds of lifetimes, but they were settling into patterns he could access without being overwhelmed. He needed a plan. Dumbledore would eventually discover the memory blocks were gone. The old wizard had left Harry with the Dursleys for some purpose, isolation from the wizarding world, most likely. Harry had no intention of confronting Dumbledore directly, not yet, not as a 6-year-old child, regardless of his remembered power. First, he needed to remaster magic with this young body. His past lives gave him knowledge, but his muscles and magical pathways needed training. He would start small. Wandless magic had been his specialty in several incarnations. Harry focused on his palm, drawing on memories of Tao the alchemist. He whispered an ancient Chinese incantation and concentrated on heat and light. A small flame blossomed above his hand, flickering steadily. He smiled. Yes, this body could channel magic effectively, despite its youth. With practice, he could recover much of his former capabilities. Second, he needed allies. As memories settled, Harry recalled beings who might still exist, creatures with lifespans long enough to remember him from previous incarnations. Sebastian, a vampire he'd known in 3 different lives, had been in London as recently as the 1940s. The merfolk of the Scottish Locks had once sworn a generational oath to aid him after he'd saved their queen in the 16th century. Third, and most troubling, was the pattern he'd glimpsed during the memory block removal. Morrigan, his ancient enemy from Atlantis, had appeared in different guises throughout history. The timing of certain blocks suggested Morrigan might be connected to their placement, a systematic attempt to keep Harry from remembering their eternal conflict. If so, Voldemort might be merely a pawn in a much longer game. Harry needed to discover if Morrigan's influence extended to recent events in Wizarding Britain. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Aunt Petunia stood awkwardly in the doorway, clutching a small wooden box. "When your mother died," she said stiffly, "this came with you. Dumbledore's letter said to keep it until you turned 11, but..." She hesitated. "Perhaps you should have it now." She thrust the box toward him and quickly left, closing the door behind her. Harry examined the simple wooden container, recognizing protective runes carved almost invisibly along its edges. His mother's work, he remembered her talent for protective magic from the memories of his early childhood. Inside lay a small red stone and a folded note. Harry unfolded the parchment and recognized Lily Potter's handwriting. "My dearest Harry, if you're reading this, we didn't survive. This stone is a family heirloom. It responds only to Potter blood and helps focus magic without a wand. James says it's been in his family since before Hogwarts was founded. Keep it close. We've taken precautions against the worst. If something happens to us, you must not remain with Petunia permanently. Will name Sirius Black as your guardian, with Remus Lupin, Alice Longbottom, and Minerva McGonagall as alternatives. If you're still with Petunia by your 7th birthday, something has gone terribly wrong. The goblins hold a copy of our will. Seek them if no one has come for you. We love you beyond words." Harry stared at the stone, memories surfacing from one of his earliest incarnations. He'd crafted this stone himself, as Peveril the Artificer, infusing it with magic that could focus intent without the limitations of a crafted wand. It had passed through his own bloodline for generations, returning to him now. He closed his fingers around it, feeling the magic respond instantly to his touch. This changed things. With the focus stone, he could accelerate his magical practice significantly. Harry placed the stone under his pillow and lay back, closing his eyes. 6 years old, with memories spanning millennia and a gathering sense that events had been manipulated across multiple lifetimes. He would need to move carefully. Tomorrow, he would begin building his strength. There was much to do before anyone discovered that Harry Potter was no longer the malleable child Dumbledore had intended to shape. 3 months later, Harry sat cross-legged in the small copse of trees behind the local park, the focus stone balanced on his palm. His life had changed dramatically since that day at Gringotts. The Dursleys maintained a wary truce with him, providing what he needed while otherwise pretending he didn't exist, an arrangement that suited everyone. At school, Harry had carefully cultivated a reputation as bright but unremarkable, neither drawing attention nor allowing Dudley's former bullying to continue. In private, however, Harry practiced tirelessly. Each morning before dawn, he performed magical exercises remembered from his life as Hayashi, a Japanese magical martial artist. Each evening, he practiced wandless spells using the focus stone, steadily rebuilding his magical pathways. Today marked an important step, his first attempt to make contact with a potential ally from his past. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the stone. Sanguis vocat sanguinum, spiritus vocat spiritum, he murmured, drawing on memories of ritual magic from medieval France. Sebastian Noir, I seek audience. The focus stone grew warm, then cold, then warm again, the spell working through magical channels to locate its target. Harry repeated the invocation twice more, then opened his eyes and waited. He didn't have to wait long. As dusk fell, a tall figure in an impeccable charcoal suit materialized at the edge of the trees. Sebastian hadn't changed since their last meeting in 1943, when Harry had been Margaret Winters, a codebreaker in secret working with the British government. Curious, Sebastian said, his voice carrying the faint traces of a French accent despite centuries in England. I received a call through channels not used in decades, from a child who smells of old magic. His dark eyes studied Harry intently. Who are you, boy? Harry met his gaze steadily. I've had many names. You knew me as Margaret Winters in the 1940s. Before that, as Edwin Blackwood in the 1820s. And first as Thomas Harrington in 1667, when I saved you from witch hunters in Yorkshire. Sebastian went perfectly still, the predatory stillness of a vampire assessing a threat. Impossible. Those souls have moved on. Not exactly. Harry held up the focus stone. I've remembered, Sebastian. All of it. The memory blocks are gone. Moving with inhuman speed, Sebastian was suddenly kneeling before Harry, inhaling deeply. The magical signature, similar, yes, beneath the child's scent. His eyes widened. Margaret? Thomas? How? I'm Harry now. Harry Potter. Recognition flashed across Sebastian's face. The boy who lived. Of course. He sat back. Tell me everything. Harry explained the events at Gringotts, the discovery of the memory blocks, and his growing suspicion about Morrigan's continued influence. Sebastian listened without interruption, his expression growing darker. I've sensed disturbances in the old patterns, the vampire admitted when Harry finished. Something ancient stirs. The magical communities whisper of the Dark Lord's fall, but few know of your role. Dumbledore has kept details remarkably contained. What do you know about Dumbledore? Harry asked. Sebastian's mouth curved in a humorless smile. I've observed him for decades. Brilliant, powerful, but convinced of his own righteousness to a dangerous degree. He collects people, positions them like chess pieces. I stayed clear of his attention. He positioned me with the Dursleys, Harry said. Against my parents' wishes. Not surprising. He'd want to control your development, keep you from influences he couldn't monitor. Sebastian frowned. But the older memory blocks, those aren't his work. No. Some date back centuries. I believe Morrigan may be responsible for many of them. Sebastian hissed softly. That name. I've not heard it spoken aloud in 300 years. Then you know it? Whispers only. A shadow moving behind major magical conflicts. Some vampires believe he influenced Grindelwald's rise. If he's connected to your recent Dark Lord. Sebastian shook his head. This is deeply troubling. I need allies, Sebastian. People who won't report to Dumbledore or draw attention to my changed nature. The vampire considered this. What exactly do you propose? Information, for now. Help me establish connections with others who might remember me from past lives. Help me understand what's happened in magical Britain since Voldemort's fall. And in return. Harry smiled. You once asked Margaret for the formula for artificial blood. I've remembered it. Sebastian's eyes gleamed with sudden interest. The formula that would free my kind from human feeding? I'll need a proper laboratory eventually, but yes, I can reproduce it. The vampire extended his hand. Then we have an arrangement, old friend. As they shook hands, Harry felt the first piece of his new life falling into place. With Sebastian's help, he could build a network away from Dumbledore's watchful eyes, and begin preparing for whatever Morrigan might be planning. By his 7th birthday, Harry had established a routine that balanced multiple objectives. To the outside world, he appeared to be an ordinary, if somewhat precocious child. The Dursleys maintained their distance but provided what he needed. At school, he performed well but not brilliantly, making a few casual friendships without becoming too close to anyone. In secret, his progress accelerated. With Sebastian's help, Harry made contact with other beings who remembered his past incarnations, a family of Selkies living off the British coast, an ancient Grindylow who served as keeper of underwater records, even a phoenix who had bonded with him during his life as Helena Ravenclaw. Each connection brought information and resources. The Selkies provided rare magical herbs that grew only underwater. The Grindylow shared historical records unavailable in modern libraries. The Phoenix, Solaris, couldn't stay with Harry at Privet Drive but would come when called in true need. Most importantly, Harry had begun investigating the pattern of memory blocks and their possible connection to Morrigan. Sebastian brought historical records showing mysterious figures who appeared throughout wizarding history, different names and faces, but similar magical signatures and methodologies. If Morrigan had achieved his twisted immortality through Atlantean magic, he might need to change physical forms periodically. On the morning of his birthday, Harry received an unexpected visitor. He was practicing elemental manipulation in his room when a soft pop announced a house elf's arrival. "Master Harry Potter, sir." The elf bowed low, his large ears nearly touching the floor. "Dobby is bringing birthday greetings from the Hogwarts elves." Harry blinked in surprise. "Hello, Dobby. How did you know it's my birthday?" All house elves knows about Harry Potter. Dobby's tennis ball eyes shone with admiration. "The boy who lived." "But Dobby comes with special message from Hogwarts elves. They says to tell Harry Potter that theys remembers him from before." Harry straightened. "From before? What do they remember, Dobby?" The elf twisted his pillowcase nervously. "They says Harry Potter's magic feels like founder magic. Like when Hogwarts was young. They says Harry Potter has returned." He looked up anxiously. Dobby doesn't understand, but promised to deliver message. A cold thrill ran through Harry. The house elves had sensed his connection to Hogwarts, perhaps from his life as Helena Ravenclaw or even earlier incarnations. "Thank you, Dobby. Please tell them I look forward to returning to Hogwarts when the time comes." Dobby beamed. "Dobby will tell." He fidgeted, then blurted out, "Dobby shouldn't say, but Dobby's own master speaks of Harry Potter sometimes. With the scary man who smells like snakes." Harry went very still. "Who is your master, Dobby?" "Bad Dobby." The elf immediately began banging his head against the wall. Harry quickly stopped him. "Don't punish yourself. You don't have to tell me your master's name." Dobby looked relieved but still troubled. "Master meets with Snake Man in secret. Snake Man asks about old magic, about living forever." He shuddered. "Snake Man's magic is wrong, twisted. Reminds Dobby of stories about he must not be named." "But it's not Voldemort?" Harry asked sharply. Dobby squeaked at the name. "No, no. Different. Older, Dobby thinks." The elf wrung his hands. "Dobby must go before being missed. Happy birthday, Harry Potter." With another pop, the elf vanished, leaving Harry deep in thought. A man who smelled like snakes discussing immortality with a wizard powerful enough to own house elves. Another piece of the puzzle, perhaps connected to Morrigan's current activities. Harry made a mental note to ask Sebastian about wizarding families with snake associations. The vampire's network of informants extended throughout magical Britain. Later that evening, as Harry practiced wandless transfiguration in his room, an owl tapped at his window. The letter it carried bore the Gringotts seal. Inside was a brief message from Blood Fong: "Potter, your parents will has been unsealed for review on this, your 7th birthday, as specified in their final instructions. Discrepancies have been noted. Your godfather, Sirius Black, is currently imprisoned in Azkaban without trial. Evidence suggests irregularities in the case against him. The will explicitly forbids your placement with Petunia Dursley except as a temporary emergency measure. Legal proceedings could be initiated to enforce alternative guardianship as specified by your parents. Your presence is requested at Gringotts at your earliest convenience to discuss these matters. Blood Fong Head Healer, Gringotts Bank." Harry read the letter twice, his mind racing. Sirius Black, imprisoned without trial. Alternative guardianship. This could change everything. He immediately wrote a response, arranging to visit Gringotts the following weekend. Sebastian had shown him how to use the night bus, wizarding transportation that could take him to Diagon Alley without alerting Dumbledore's watchers, whom Harry occasionally spotted near Privet Drive. This development might accelerate his plans significantly. If he could secure proper wizarding guardianship, he would have much more freedom to operate within magical society before his official Hogwarts acceptance. More importantly, it might provide insights into why Dumbledore had so deliberately ignored his parents' wishes. The pieces were moving now. Harry could sense the larger game taking shape around him, Dumbledore's plans, Morrigan's ancient schemes, and his own awakening power caught between them. But this time, unlike his many past lives, he had the advantage of remembering. This time, he wouldn't be manipulated so easily. This time, he would be ready. The Gringotts meeting revealed more than Harry had anticipated. His parents will explicitly named Sirius Black as his guardian, with detailed instructions for his care and education. The will also contained a crucial statement: Sirius Black had not been their secret keeper when they died, Peter Pettigrew had. This directly contradicts the official reason for Black's imprisonment, Bloodfong explained. He was sent to Azkaban for betraying your parents to the Dark Lord and subsequently killing Pettigrew and 12 Muggles. Without a trial, Harry noted. Convenient for someone. Precisely. The goblin pushed a folder across the desk. Our investigators have compiled this information on Black's case. The evidence suggests high-level interference to prevent proper judicial procedure. Harry examined the documents. Bartemius Crouch and Albus Dumbledore both signed orders to transfer Black directly to Azkaban. Dumbledore testified he had personal knowledge that Black was the secret keeper. He looked up sharply. But the will contradicts this. Dumbledore witnessed the will, he knew Black wasn't the secret keeper. A concerning discrepancy, Bloodfong agreed. We can petition the Ministry for a proper trial based on this new evidence, but such proceedings move slowly, especially when they might embarrass powerful figures. What about my guardianship in the meantime? The alternatives named are Remus Lupin, currently unlocatable, Alice Longbottom, permanently incapacitated at St. Mungo's, and Minerva McGonagall, who works directly under Dumbledore at Hogwarts. Bloodfang's expression suggested none of these options were ideal. However, there is a clause allowing for magical guardianship by proxy if you can claim your status as head of House Potter. Harry raised an eyebrow. At 7 years old? Unprecedented but not impossible. Given your unique circumstances, the goblin gestured vaguely toward Harry's forehead, indicating both his scar and his recovered memories, you could petition for early recognition as magically mature. The ancient family magics might accept you, considering your special condition. It was a risk. Claiming head of house status would alert Dumbledore and others that Harry was far from the ordinary child they expected. But it would also give him legal standing in the wizarding world and the ability to access more of his family resources. What would this involve? Harry asked. A ritual performed here at Gringotts, calling upon the Potter family magic to recognize you. If successful, you would be acknowledged as head of House Potter in magic, though some legal restrictions would remain until you reach 11. Harry considered the implications. Would Dumbledore be notified immediately? As Chief Warlock, he would receive notification of a new head of house being recognized. However, the details could be delayed through administrative channels. Harry smiled at the goblin's deliberate vagueness. How long could such a delay last? Perhaps until your Hogwarts letter arrives. Bureaucracy moves slowly. Bloodfong returned the smile, showing pointed teeth. Especially when properly incentivized. Let's proceed with the ritual, Harry decided. And simultaneously file the petition for Sirius Black's trial review. If we move on multiple fronts, it complicates any attempts to maintain the status quo. The ritual took place in a chamber deep beneath Gringotts. Harry stood in a circle of ancient runes while 7 goblin elders chanted in their native tongue. When Bloodfong called upon him to present himself to the Potter family magic, Harry did something unexpected. He drew not only on his identity as Harry Potter, but on the resonance of every past life where he had championed justice and right magic. The circle flared with golden light. A spectral stag materialized, studying Harry intensely before lowering its antlers in recognition. The magic surged, accepting him not just as heir, but as head of House Potter. When the ritual concluded, a heavy gold ring appeared on Harry's finger, sized perfectly and bearing the Potter crest. "Extraordinary," murmured an elder goblin. The family magic recognized him instantly. As if it had been waiting. Bloodfong looked both impressed and concerned. "You now have access to the main Potter vaults, properties, and legal standing as head of house. Use these resources wisely, Lord Potter. Many will question a child holding such position." "Then I'll need to ensure I don't appear to be just a child," Harry replied, studying the ring. "What's next?" "We've filed the petition regarding Sirius Black. Given the evidence in the will, the Ministry cannot legally ignore it. However." Bloodfong hesitated. "Politics will slow it down," Harry finished. "Especially with Dumbledore potentially opposing it." "Precisely. You would benefit from allies within the Ministry." Harry nodded thoughtfully. "I believe it's time I arranged some strategic meetings. Are there wizarding families traditionally allied with House Potter who might still honor those connections?" By the time Harry left Gringotts that day, he had a list of potential allies, access to significantly more resources, and the beginnings of a plan to secure Sirius Black's freedom. The implications of Dumbledore's involvement in his godfather's imprisonment troubled him deeply. Was it simple expediency to ensure Harry ended up with the Dursleys? Or something more calculated, connected to the prophecy Bloodfong had mentioned? Either way, it reinforced Harry's determination to build his own power base before his official entry into the wizarding world at 11. For years might seem short, but he had centuries of experience to draw upon now. Walking through Diagon Alley under a minor glamour charm, another skill recovered from past lives, Harry spotted a familiar figure entering Flourish and Blott's bookstore, a bushy-haired young girl accompanied by bewildered-looking parents. Even at 7 years old, Hermione Granger's thirst for knowledge was evident. Harry froze, memories flooding back. Not just memories of Hermione from this timeline's future, memories of her soul from past lives. He'd known her before, across multiple incarnations. In ancient Egypt, she'd been Nefertari, a brilliant scholar of magical hieroglyphs. In medieval France, she'd been Claude, a male astronomer with whom Harry, then Eleanor, had studied celestial magic. Without conscious decision, Harry found himself entering the bookstore, drawn by the connection that spanned lifetimes. Hermione stood in the magical theory section, already reading intently despite clearly being a muggleborn just discovering magic. Harry approached carefully, selecting a book from a nearby shelf. "That's a good one," he commented, nodding at the tome in her hands. "Though if you're interested in magical theory, Adalbert Waffling's Fundamental Laws of Magic explains the basics more clearly." Hermione looked up, surprised. "You've read it? But you're my age." "I read a lot," Harry shrugged. "I'm Harry, by the way. Hermione Granger." She studied him curiously. "Do you come from a magical family?" "My parents and I just found out I'm a witch when I made all the books fly off the shelves at school." Harry smiled, remembering similar incidents from their shared past lives. Always the same brilliant soul, always discovering her power through books. "Yes, though I live with non-magical relatives. How about I help you find some good introductory books? The wizarding world can be overwhelming at first." As they browsed together, Harry carefully gauged Hermione's reactions. No sign that she remembered past lives, but her fundamental nature remained unchanged, curious, precise, with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and a deep sense of justice. When her parents called that it was time to leave, Hermione hesitated. "Will I see you again? It's nice meeting someone magical my own age." Harry made a quick decision. "I think we might attend the same primary school soon. My uncle's job might be transferring to your area." It wasn't true yet, but with his access to Potter resources, arranging a move wouldn't be difficult. The delighted smile that lit Hermione's face confirmed he'd made the right choice. Some connections transcended time and circumstance. If Morrigan was indeed rising again, Harry would need allies who resonated with his deepest purpose, and across multiple lifetimes, Hermione's soul had always stood with his when it mattered most. The next year passed in a whirlwind of activity. Using Potter family resources, Harry orchestrated a move to a comfortable house in Hermione's neighborhood, explaining to the Dursleys that a previously unknown Potter property had become available and offering them a generous monthly stipend to maintain appearances as his guardians. Vernon and Petunia, seeing an opportunity to benefit financially while having less direct contact with their magical nephew, agreed readily. The new arrangement gave Harry unprecedented freedom while maintaining the blood protection his mother's sacrifice had created. Harry enrolled at Hermione's primary school and carefully cultivated their friendship. He found ways to subtly help her control her occasional bursts of accidental magic, explaining concepts like magical cores and intent-based control without revealing the full extent of his own abilities. Meanwhile, his network of allies expanded. Sebastian introduced him to key contacts in various magical communities. The petition for Sirius Black's case review slowly worked its way through ministry bureaucracy, delayed but not derailed by Dumbledore's subtle interference. Harry made discreet connections with the Longbottoms, the Boneses, and other families traditionally allied with House Potter. Most importantly, Harry continued investigating the pattern of Morrigan's influence throughout history. Sebastian's research uncovered disturbing connections, a series of dark wizards across different eras, each pursuing similar magic focused on soul manipulation, each appearing shortly after the previous one's defeat. If the pattern held, Morrigan would have found a new host following Voldemort's fall. On a crisp autumn day, Harry sat with Hermione in her backyard, ostensibly studying mathematics but actually teaching her basic wandless magic exercises. "I don't understand how you know all this," Hermione said, frowning in concentration as she tried to levitate a leaf. "You said magical children don't usually get training before Hogwarts." Harry had prepared for this question. "I found some old books in the Potter family library. And I practice a lot." The leaf trembled, then rose an inch before floating gently back down. Hermione beamed with accomplishment. "You did it!" Harry exclaimed. "That's brilliant, Hermione." She blushed with pleasure. "It's easier when you explain it. The books make magic sound so complicated, but when you talk about feeling the energy and directing it with intent, it makes sense." Harry smiled, remembering teaching her similar concepts in past lives. Magic is part of us, not just something we do. The more you connect with that, the more natural it becomes. "Harry," Hermione said hesitantly, "sometimes when we're practicing, I get the strangest feeling that we've done this before. Is that normal?" Harry's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of feeling, exactly?" "Like déjà vu, but stronger. Like I already know what you're going to say sometimes. And I have these dreams." She trailed off, looking embarrassed. "What dreams?" Harry prompted gently. "Dreams where I'm someone else. Someone older, studying stars with someone who feels like you, but isn't you. It's probably just my imagination." It wasn't. The soul connection was triggering memory fragments from their shared past as Eleanor and Claude. Harry had suspected this might happen. Proximity to someone with fully unlocked past life memories could sometimes trigger similar awakening in souls with strong connections. "Magic works in mysterious ways," Harry said carefully. "Those dreams might be important. If you have more, try writing them down when you wake up." Hermione nodded seriously, then returned to practicing with the leaf. Harry watched her, mind racing. If Hermione was beginning to remember naturally, others might too. Luna Lovegood, whose soul had intertwined with his through 7 different incarnations. Neville Longbottom, who had been his sworn brother-in-arms during their lives as Japanese samurai. These natural connections could be powerful allies against whatever Morrigan was planning, but they also created vulnerability. If his ancient enemy realized Harry had remembered everything, he might target those connected to him. Harry needed to accelerate his preparations. With his 8th birthday approaching, he was running out of time before his official re-entry into the wizarding world at 11 would bring him under much closer scrutiny. That evening, Harry performed a ritual he'd been preparing for months. Using the focus stone and elements gathered from his various allies, Selkie tears, phoenix ash, vampire blood freely given, he created a scrying pool in the basement of his new home, warded heavily against detection. The ritual, remembered from his life as an oracle in ancient Greece, would allow him to search for Morrigan's current incarnation. It was dangerous, such direct magical seeking could alert the target, but Harry needed confirmation of his suspicions. As the scrying pool shimmered with accumulated magic, Harry whispered the invocation, "Reveal to me the essence of Morrigan, the Deathless One, in his current form." The liquid surface swirled, then cleared to show a handsome man with aristocratic features speaking to a pale, sickly figure. Though no sound accompanied the vision, Harry could see the handsome man's expression, calculating, cold, with the same ancient malevolence Harry remembered from Atlantis. A name formed in Harry's mind, Lucius Malfoy. And the sickly figure he addressed contained a fragment of Voldemort's soul. The vision confirmed Harry's worst fears. Morrigan had indeed taken a new host, one positioned at the highest levels of wizarding society. And he maintained connection with Voldemort's disembodied spirit, likely planning his restoration as part of a larger scheme. The scrying pool suddenly boiled, the vision dissolving as wards triggered. Malfoy, no, Morrigan, had sensed the magical observation. Harry quickly banished the ritual components, knowing he had limited time before anyone could trace the magic back to him. The revelation changed everything. Morrigan was not only active but had positioned himself perfectly to influence Wizarding Britain's power structure. This explained Lucius Malfoy's meteoric rise after the war, his inexplicable escape from punishment for Death Eater activities, and his growing influence in the Ministry. It wasn't just money and blackmail, it was ancient, powerful magic guiding his every move. Harry sat back, processing the implications. He had 3 years before Hogwarts to prepare for direct confrontation with an enemy who had already noticed him. 3 years to build allies, strengthen his magic, and develop a strategy against an immortal who had centuries of experience manipulating wizarding politics. The game had shifted from preparation to active counter-movement. Harry Potter, or rather, the ancient soul within the boy, had faced this enemy many times before. But never with such clear advanced knowledge, and never with his memories intact from the beginning. For the first time in their eternal conflict, Harry had the advantage of foresight. He intended to use it well. In the months that followed, Harry balanced multiple priorities with increasing urgency. He strengthened his friendship with Hermione, carefully guiding her developing magical abilities while watching for further signs of past life memories emerging. He maintained contact with Sebastian and other supernatural allies, gathering information about Malfoy/Morrigan's activities in the wizarding world. Most importantly, he accelerated his petition for Sirius Black's case review, using his position as head of House Potter to demand attention from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Amelia Bones, recently appointed as department head, proved to be an unexpected ally in this effort. Her strict sense of justice outweighed political considerations. By spring, the ministry could no longer ignore the evidence Harry had compiled through Gringotts. A closed hearing was scheduled to review Sirius Black's case, with Veritaserum testimony authorized given the seriousness of the allegations of judicial misconduct. Harry couldn't attend directly, revealing himself as the driving force behind the petition would attract too much attention, but Bloodfong represented House Potter's interests, armed with the damning evidence from James and Lily's will. The day of the hearing, Harry waited anxiously at Gringotts, permitted to use a secure viewing room where the proceedings were magically mirrored. He watched as Sirius Black was brought in, gaunt, haunted, but with a spark of defiance still burning in his eyes. Under Veritaserum, Black's testimony confirmed everything. Peter Pettigrew had been the secret keeper, had betrayed the Potters, had framed Sirius by killing the Muggles and faking his own death. Most damningly, Sirius testified that Dumbledore had known about the switch in Secret Keepers, had, in fact, suggested it as an additional layer of protection. The hearing room erupted in chaos at this revelation. Harry watched Dumbledore's face carefully. The old wizard maintained a sorrowful expression, but his eyes calculated rapidly, adjusting to this unexpected exposure. When the hearing concluded, Sirius Black was declared innocent of all charges, with full exoneration and compensation for wrongful imprisonment. Dumbledore's reputation suffered a significant blow, though his various positions remained secure given his overall standing in the wizarding world. More importantly for Harry's plans, Sirius was declared his rightful magical guardian, superseding any arrangements Dumbledore had made. Once Black was deemed healthy enough after proper medical treatment, Harry would legally be under his care. That evening, Sebastian brought news that Lucius Malfoy had been present at the ministry during the hearing, observing from a distance. He seemed particularly interested in who might be behind the petition, the vampire reported. His sources have likely informed him that House Potter initiated the review. Harry nodded thoughtfully. Morrigan will be connecting the dots. He'll realize something has changed with me. Are you concerned? Sebastian asked. Cautious, Harry corrected. This moves our confrontation timeline forward, but also gives me access to Sirius and the protection of a proper wizarding guardian. Overall, it's worth the risk. 2 weeks later, Harry stood in St. Mungo's hospital, outside the private room where Sirius Black was recovering from the effects of long-term Dementor exposure. Healers had declared him stable enough for visitors, though full recovery would take months of intensive treatment. Taking a deep breath, Harry knocked and entered. Sirius looked up from the bed, his face still gaunt but his eyes clearer than during the hearing. Those eyes widened in shock as they fell on Harry. Harry, he whispered. Is that really you? Harry approached the bed, studying the man who had been his father's best friend. Hello, Sirius. Yes, it's me. Sirius reached out trembling fingers to touch Harry's face, then his eyes filled with tears. You look so much like James. Except, my mother's eyes, Harry finished with a small smile. I've heard that before. How are you here? Dumbledore said you were safely hidden away until Hogwarts. That's a very long story, Harry replied, pulling up a chair. One I think you should hear completely, since you're now legally my guardian. Sirius straightened. They approved it already? Dumbledore fought against, he stopped, looking ashamed. Harry, about that night. I shouldn't have gone after Peter. I should have stayed with you. It's my fault you ended up with those muggles. It wasn't just your choices that led to that, Harry said gently. There were many factors. Many manipulations. Something in Harry's tone made Sirius study him more carefully. You sound older than you should, pup. Harry met his gaze steadily. That's part of the long story. Before I tell you, I need to know something. Where do your loyalties lie, Sirius? With Dumbledore? With me? With someone else? With you, Sirius answered without hesitation. Always with you, Harry. You're my godson. James and Lily entrusted you to me. His eyes darkened. As for Dumbledore, I respected him once. But after what came out in that hearing, he shook his head. No. Never again. Harry nodded, satisfied with both the answer and the emotion behind it. Then I'll tell you everything. But first, he drew his wand, acquired through Sebastian's connections, and cast privacy wards around the room, far more complex than any 8-year-old should manage. Sirius's jaw dropped. How did you? Like I said, Harry smiled, settling back in his chair. It's a very long story. It begins at Gringotts, about 2 years ago, when some very unusual memory blocks were removed from my mind. As Harry explained his recovered past lives, Morrigan's eternal opposition, and Dumbledore's manipulations, Sirius's expression cycled through disbelief, shock, and finally grim acceptance. By the time Harry finished with his suspicions about Lucius Malfoy being Morrigan's current host, Sirius was sitting upright in bed, all traces of weakness forgotten in the face of this extraordinary revelation. "Merlin's balls," he breathed. That's hard to believe," Harry acknowledged. "But you've seen enough to know I'm not an ordinary 8-year-old. The magic you just performed would challenge most adult wizards," Sirius agreed. "And there's something in your eyes." He shook his head wonderingly. James always said the Potters had strange magic in their bloodline. He'd tell stories about ancestors who seemed to know things they shouldn't. "The Peveril connection," Harry confirmed. "One of my earliest remembered lives." Sirius ran a hand through his shaggy hair. "So what's the plan?" "You obviously have one. Recovery is your first priority," Harry said firmly. "You need to regain your strength. Meanwhile, I'll continue living at my current residence. It's a Potter property near my friend Hermione, who you'll meet soon. Once you're released, you can join me there. And then? Then we prepare for what's coming. Morrigan knows I've remembered. He'll make moves against me, probably by influencing events around Hogwarts, since that's where I'll be most vulnerable to his current identity as Lucius Malfoy." Sirius nodded slowly. "His son Draco will be in your year. Perfect spy and potential threat." "Exactly. I need to establish allies before I arrive, students who'll stand with me, professors who won't automatically defer to Dumbledore. The old crowd from the Order might help," Sirius suggested. "Remus, for one. And Minerva was always more independent-minded than Dumbledore gave her credit for." "I'll need your help reaching out to them," Harry agreed. "Your exoneration changes the narrative. People will listen to you when you suggest Dumbledore isn't infallible." Sirius's eyes gleamed with something of his old mischievous spirit. "Oh, I'll have plenty to say on that subject." His expression sobered. "But Harry, this Morrigan. If he's as powerful and ancient as you say." "He is. And defeating him won't be easy." Harry's face hardened with the determination of countless lifetimes. "But this time, I remember who I am from the beginning. This time, I'm not starting from scratch. And this time," he gripped Sirius's hand, "I have family to fight alongside me." Sirius squeezed back, his own expression resolute. "Until the very end, pup. Until the very end." As Harry left St. Mungo's that day, he felt both the weight of the coming conflict and the lightness of having shared his burden. With Sirius as his guardian and ally, the next phase could begin, building a coalition strong enough to face not just Voldemort's eventual return, but the ancient evil pulling strings from behind Lucius Malfoy's aristocratic facade. The memories of 200 lifetimes whispered strategies and warnings in Harry's mind. The game was complex, the stakes impossibly high. But for the first time in this eternal chess match, Harry had managed to see the board clearly before the critical moves began. This time, perhaps, the cycle could finally be broken. Chapter 2, New Beginnings. "Focus on how it feels, not what you want it to do," Harry said, sitting cross-legged on the grassy hill behind Hermione's house. "Magic responds to intention, not just words or movements." Hermione's face scrunched up in concentration, her small hand trembling as she pointed at the fallen leaf. "It's just so frustrating. I can make books fly across the room when I'm angry, but when I actually try, that's exactly the problem," Harry interrupted gently. "You're trying too hard. Accidental magic comes naturally because you're not overthinking it." 7-year-old Harry Potter had been working with Hermione for nearly 6 months now, ever since engineering his move to her neighborhood. Their friendship had blossomed quickly, built on shared intelligence and Hermione's fascination with Harry's knowledge of the magical world she'd only recently discovered she belonged to. Hermione took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and relaxed her shoulders. "Okay. Not overthinking." Harry watched as her magic signature shifted, something only visible to him because of his past life as Merrick, an Egyptian seer who could perceive magical auras. Her normally frantic, sparking energy smoothed into a steadier flow. The leaf quivered, then rose 3 inches off the ground, hovering perfectly. Hermione's eyes snapped open. I did it. The leaf immediately dropped as her concentration broke, but Harry grinned widely. That was perfect. You felt it that time, didn't you? She nodded excitedly. It was like a warm current flowing through my arm. Almost like, she stopped suddenly, her expression growing distant. Like what? Harry prompted, recognizing the look. It had been appearing more frequently lately, moments when something triggered fragments of her past life memories. Like when I used to track star movements, she said slowly, then blinked in confusion. I don't know why I said that. I've never studied astronomy. Harry kept his expression neutral despite his excitement. Maybe you read about it somewhere and forgot. Maybe. Hermione didn't look convinced, but the moment passed. Can we try again? I want to make it stay up longer this time. As they continued practicing, Harry reflected on the progress of his plans over the past year. Sirius had recovered remarkably well after 6 months of intensive treatment at St. Mungo's and now lived with Harry at the Potter property in Hermione's neighborhood. Their cover story, that Sirius was Harry's godfather who had finally gained custody after being wrongfully imprisoned, contained just enough truth to satisfy curious neighbors while keeping the magical aspects hidden. Sebastian's network had expanded their intelligence gathering, tracking Lucius Malfoy's movements in both the wizarding and muggle worlds. The vampire had also helped Harry connect with other beings who remembered him from past lives, a centaur elder who recognized Harry's magic signature from his time as a forest mage, a mermaid queen who still honored an ancient pact with his soul. Most importantly, Harry had begun careful political maneuvering through proxies at the ministry, ensuring his status as head of House Potter remained officially recognized while keeping his full capabilities hidden. Amelia Bones had proven particularly valuable as an ally, her strict sense of justice making her receptive to evidence of past manipulations by both Dumbledore and Malfoy. Harry, look! Hermione's excited voice pulled him from his thoughts. The leaf now hovered steadily at eye level, rotating slowly as she carefully directed it with her finger. That's brilliant. Harry beamed genuinely. Hermione's natural affinity for magic was extraordinary, just as it had been in her previous incarnations. Try moving it in a circle now. The leaf began a wobbly orbit around them. Hermione's face glowed with accomplishment, her bushy hair crackling slightly with magical energy. A sharp pain suddenly lanced through Harry's scar. He winced, pressing his palm against his forehead. Hermione immediately lost concentration, the leaf fluttering to the ground. What's wrong? Is it your headache again? Harry nodded, forcing a smile. Just a flash. It's already fading. These pain spikes had been occurring more frequently, always at moments when he was deeply focused on magic. Sebastian believed they indicated Morrigan's growing awareness of Harry's awakened state. The ancient entity, currently inhabiting Lucius Malfoy, was likely probing magically for confirmation of the threat he sensed. Maybe we should head back, Hermione suggested, looking concerned. Sirius said he'd be making treacle tart today anyway. The mention of his godfather lightened Harry's mood. Can't miss that. His cooking is finally improving now that he stopped trying to use magic for everything. They gathered their things and walked back toward Harry's house, chatting about their upcoming school science project. To any observer, they looked like ordinary children, not a reincarnated ancient soul and his equally old friend who was beginning to remember her own past lives. Harry, Hermione said suddenly as they crossed through the small wooded area separating their neighborhood from the hill, can I ask you something strange? Of course. Do you ever have dreams where you're someone else? Someone older, living in a different time? Harry slowed his pace, studying her carefully. What kind of dreams? Hermione bit her lip. Last night, I dreamed I was a man named Claude. I lived in France, hundreds of years ago. I was studying the stars with a woman named Eleanor. She looked embarrassed. It felt so real, I knew Latin and Greek in the dream, and how to use something called an astrolabe. Harry's heart raced. Her memories were emerging faster than he'd anticipated. This was both promising and dangerous. Promising because having Hermione remember their shared past lives would make her a more effective ally, dangerous because it might draw Morrigan's attention to her. "Dreams can be pretty weird," he said casually, while his mind worked furiously on how to handle this development. "But sometimes they might mean something." "What else happened in the dream?" "Eleanor and I were tracking something in the stars, a conjunction we believed would amplify a ritual." "Something about?" Hermione frowned, struggling to recall. "Soul magic, I think." And Eleanor felt familiar, like. Her eyes widened as she looked at Harry. "Like you." Before Harry could respond, a twig snapped sharply nearby. Both children whirled to face the sound. A tall figure stood partially hidden among the trees, an old man with a long silver beard, wearing what appeared to Hermione as an eccentric suit but Harry immediately recognized as subdued wizarding robes. Albus Dumbledore had found them. Harry stepped slightly in front of Hermione, his hand slipping into his pocket where he kept his focus stone. "Hello, Professor Dumbledore. I was wondering when you'd visit." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly, but his grandfatherly smile remained fixed in place. "Harry, my boy. You recognize me. How interesting." "Sirius described you quite thoroughly," Harry replied smoothly. Not a lie, technically, Sirius had indeed described the headmaster, among their many conversations about Hogwarts and the wizarding world. Hermione tugged at Harry's sleeve. "Who is this?" she whispered, clearly uncomfortable with the strange man's sudden appearance. "This is Professor Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts," Harry explained. "The magical school we'll attend when we're 11. Dumbledore's gaze shifted to Hermione, his eyes twinkling with apparent benevolence that didn't quite reach their calculating depths. "Miss Granger, I presume. Quite remarkable to find you already acquainted with young Harry." "You know who I am?" Hermione asked, surprised. "Magical children are monitored for safety and proper education," Dumbledore explained. "May I have a word with Harry alone?" "Just for a moment." Harry could sense Hermione's reluctance to leave him. "It's okay," he assured her. "Wait for me at the oak tree. I'll be right there." Once Hermione had walked a short distance away, Dumbledore's expression lost some of its warmth. "You've been quite busy, Harry. Gringotts visits, claiming your headship, freeing Sirius, moving away from your aunt and uncle's protection." "Protection?" Harry raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call it?" Something flickered in Dumbledore's eyes, surprise at his tone, perhaps, or concern at the implication. "The blood wards are still active," Harry interrupted. "I visit Aunt Petunia monthly to maintain them." "I'm not reckless, Professor." Dumbledore studied him with greater intensity. "You seem remarkably well informed for a child raised in the Muggle world." "Sirius has been very educational," Harry replied. "And the goblins were happy to explain my heritage once they discovered who I was." "I see." Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. "And these magical lessons with Miss Granger? Quite advanced for children your age." So he had been watching them practice. Harry felt a flare of anger but kept his expression neutral. "Just basic control exercises. Accidental magic can be dangerous without guidance." "Indeed." Dumbledore's eyes bore into Harry's, and Harry felt the subtle pressure of legitimacy against his mental shields, shields that no 7-year-old should possess. Harry allowed surface thoughts to be visible, concern for Hermione, excitement about magic, while keeping his true knowledge and plans secure behind barriers developed across multiple lifetimes. The slight widening of Dumbledore's eyes told him the headmaster had encountered those barriers. "You continue to surprise me, Harry," Dumbledore said softly, withdrawing from the mental probe. "I wonder who has been teaching you occlumency." "Is that what it's called?" Harry asked innocently. "I've always been able to organize my thoughts." "Helps with school." Dumbledore didn't look convinced, but his approach shifted. "I'm concerned about your safety, Harry. There are those who would harm the boy who lived if they could find him. Which is why I maintain the blood wards and keep a low profile in the magical world, Harry countered. Sirius and I have taken every precaution. Sirius's judgment has not always been sound, Dumbledore noted with gentle disapproval. Harry's eyes hardened slightly. Sirius was denied a trial for 7 years while I was left with people who hated magic. I think we've both experienced questionable judgment from those in authority, Professor. The barb hit its mark. Dumbledore's expression flickered with something like regret before settling back into calm concern. The decisions I've made were always for your protection and the greater good, Harry. I'm sure they seemed that way to you, Harry replied, keeping his tone respectful despite the challenge in his words. But I'm safe now, I'm happy, and I'm preparing appropriately for my return to the wizarding world. Isn't that what matters? Dumbledore regarded him silently for a long moment. You are not what I expected, Harry Potter. People rarely are exactly what we expect, sir. A reluctant smile touched Dumbledore's lips. Indeed. He glanced toward Hermione, who was watching them anxiously from the oak tree. Miss Granger's magical development is quite remarkable as well. You've chosen your friend wisely. She chose me, actually, Harry said truthfully. Smartest person I've ever met. Her future at Hogwarts will be bright, Dumbledore observed. Then, with a significant look at Harry, as will yours, though perhaps not along the path I had anticipated. Life rarely follows a predetermined path, Professor. No, Dumbledore agreed softly. It rarely does. He straightened, his manner becoming more formal. I shall respect your current arrangements, Harry, as they seem to be working well enough. But I would ask that you remember, you may contact me at any time should you need assistance. I'll remember, Harry promised. With a slight nod, Dumbledore turned and walked deeper into the trees. A moment later, the subtle crack of apparition signaled his departure. Harry immediately joined Hermione at the oak tree. Are you okay? She asked anxiously. Fine, he assured her. He was just checking up on me. I'm sort of famous in the wizarding world, it's a long story. Hermione's eyes narrowed. You're going to tell me that long story right now, Harry Potter. That man appeared out of nowhere, knew both our names, and could clearly do magic. And you talked to him like I expected him, Harry finished. You're right. Let's go to my place, and I'll explain everything. Well, everything I can. He couldn't tell her about his past lives yet, that would come gradually as her own memories continued to surface. But he could begin preparing her for the broader truths about the wizarding world and the dangers they might face. As they walked to Harry's house, he didn't notice the small beetle perched on Hermione's backpack, its antennae twitching attentively. He's fully aware, Lucius. Far beyond what should be possible for a child his age. Rita Skeeter sat across from Lucius Malfoy in his opulent study at Malfoy Manor, her quick quotes quill notably absent for this particular conversation. The normally brash reporter seemed subdued in the presence of the aristocratic wizard. You're certain? Malfoy's fingers drummed rhythmically on his snake-headed cane. Children can sometimes appear precocious through simple mimicry. This wasn't mimicry, Rita insisted. The way he spoke to Dumbledore, controlled, measured, almost like an equal. And he's teaching the Granger girl wandless magic, for Merlin's sake. Something cold and calculating flickered in Lucius's grey eyes. Wandless magic at 7. Interesting. There's more, Rita continued, eager to prove her information's value. I heard them talking before Dumbledore arrived. The girl described dreams, past life dreams, by the sound of it. And Potter didn't seem surprised. Lucius went very still, only the slight tightening of his grip on the cane betraying his reaction. Tell me exactly what she said. Word for word. As Rita recounted the conversation about Claude and Eleanor, stars and soul magic, Lucius's expression grew increasingly distant, as though listening to something beyond the room. When she finished, he remained silent for so long that Rita began to fidget uncomfortably. Lucius? He blinked, focus returning sharply. You've done well, Rita. This information is most valuable. Valuable enough to cancel my little debt, she asked hopefully. A cold smile crossed his face. Not quite yet. I have another task for you. Continue monitoring the boy, but do not interfere or allow yourself to be detected. I want to know everyone he speaks with, especially any unusual visitors. What about Dumbledore? Should I report what the old man's up to as well? Dumbledore is a secondary concern. Lucius rose, moving to a hidden cabinet behind a bookcase. What matters is the boy and these memories he seems to possess. Rita watched nervously as Lucius removed an ancient-looking box from the cabinet. When he opened it, a strange greenish light illuminated his features from below, giving him an otherworldly appearance. Lucius, what exactly is going on with Potter? Rita dared to ask. Why is he so important to you? For a moment, something shifted in Lucius's eyes, a deeper awareness, ancient and malevolent, looking out through the aristocrat's face. Rita recoiled instinctively. An old acquaintance appears to have returned, Lucius said, his voice somehow layered with another, older tone beneath it. We have unfinished business spanning more years than you could comprehend. Rita knew better than to ask further questions. Whatever game Lucius Malfoy was playing went far beyond politics or social maneuvering. She'd seen that same eerie presence once before, years ago, when Lucius had first approached her with his arrangement, an arrangement she'd been trying to escape ever since. I'll keep watching, she promised, rising to leave. One more thing, Lucius called as she reached the door. Do not mention the dreams to anyone else. Not in your articles, not in your gossip. That information is for me alone. Rita nodded quickly and departed, feeling as though she'd narrowly escaped something far more dangerous than a simple meeting. Inside the study, Lucius turned back to the ancient box, removing a small crystal sphere that pulsed with sickly green energy. So, the cycle begins again, he murmured, but the voice was no longer entirely his own. After all these centuries, you still believe you can defeat me, old friend? The crystal flared brighter in response to his words, and Lucius Malfoy, or the entity that shared his consciousness, began to laugh softly. The stars aren't just for divination, they're conduits, Harry explained, sketching a constellation pattern in the dirt floor of the hidden cellar beneath his house. Ancient cultures understood this better than modern wizards. Celestial alignments can amplify certain types of magic. Sirius watched from a corner, arms crossed but expression attentive. Over the past 6 months, he'd grown accustomed to these sessions where Harry's ancient knowledge emerged most clearly. Sometimes it was still jarring to see his godson, James and Lily's little boy, speaking with the confidence and insight of someone who had lived for centuries. Like the ritual we're planning? Hermione asked, carefully copying Harry's diagram into her notebook. Harry nodded. Exactly. The Perseid meteor shower peaks tomorrow night, creating a perfect alignment with Jupiter and Saturn. It's the ideal condition for memory magic. It had been 3 months since Dumbledore's unexpected visit, and Hermione's past life dreams had increased in both frequency and clarity. After much consideration, Harry had decided to take a calculated risk, a ritual designed to gently strengthen these emerging memories without triggering a full awakening that might overwhelm her young mind. Are you sure about this, pup? Sirius asked, concern evident in his voice. Memory magic is tricky at the best of times. With a child's developing mind, that's why we're using the celestial amplification, Harry explained patiently. It allows for subtlety that brute magical force couldn't achieve. The ritual won't implant or force anything, it'll just remove some of the natural barriers between her current consciousness and her soul's older memories. Hermione looked up from her notes. I'm not afraid, Sirius. I want to remember. These dreams feel important, like parts of myself I've lost. Sirius sighed, running a hand through his now healthy black hair. I know, kitten. I just worry. Harry may have centuries of experience in that little noggin, but his body's still 7 years old, with a 7-year-old magical core. Which is why Sebastian and Lorelei will be assisting, Harry reminded him. Their magic isn't limited by physical development the way wizards' magic is. As if summoned by their mention, a soft knock sounded at the cellar door. Sirius went to answer it, returning with Sebastian and a striking woman with iridescent skin and eyes that shifted color like deep waters. Lorelei! Hermione exclaimed, jumping up to hug the sulky woman. They had met several times over recent months, with Lorelei taking an immediate liking to the brilliant young witch. Little one, Lorelei greeted warmly. Your aura grows stronger each time I see you. The old memories are stirring well. Sebastian nodded to Harry. All preparations are complete outside. The perimeter is warded against detection, and I've stationed 3 of my people at key points to watch for any magical surveillance. Thank you, Harry said. We can't be too careful after Dumbledore's visit. He'll be watching more closely now. The group made their way outside to the small garden behind Harry's house. Night had fallen, and the sky above was clear and brilliant with stars. In the center of the garden, a circular arrangement of white stones marked the ritual space, with smaller crystals positioned at precise intervals to channel the celestial energies. It's beautiful, Hermione breathed, gazing at the setup. Beauty and function in harmony, Lorelei agreed. The old ways understood this balance. Harry took Hermione's hand. Are you ready? We can still wait if you're having second thoughts. She squeezed his hand firmly. I'm ready. These memories are part of me, I want to understand who I was before. Who you still are, Harry corrected gently. The soul remains consistent across lifetimes, even as circumstances and bodies change. Hermione nodded, then moved to sit cross-legged in the center of the stone circle as Harry had instructed earlier. Harry took position at the northern point, Lorelei at the east, Sebastian at the south, and Sirius, somewhat nervously, at the west. Begin at the first meteor sighting, Harry instructed quietly. They didn't have to wait long. A brilliant streak of light flashed across the sky, and Harry immediately began the incantation, a flowing, melodic language that predated Latin or Greek, from his time as a priest in Atlantis. Sebastian joined next, his vampire magic manifesting as deep crimson tendrils that connected with Harry's golden energy. Lorelei added her Selkie song, water magic that flowed like liquid light through the growing matrix. Finally, Sirius contributed the wizard component, his wand movements precise as he chanted the modern magical elements Harry had taught him. Above them, more meteors streaked across the night sky, each one seeming to pulse in rhythm with their working. The crystals around the circle began to glow, channeling the celestial energies downward toward Hermione. In the center, Hermione sat with her eyes closed, expression peaceful despite the swirling magic around her. Golden light settled gently over her like a blanket, sinking slowly into her skin without resistance. She's accepting it perfectly, Lorelei observed softly. Her soul recognizes the pattern. Harry nodded, maintaining his concentration on the delicate weaving of energies. This wasn't about forcing memories, that would be dangerous and unethical. Rather, they were creating pathways, bridges between her current consciousness and the deeper well of her soul's experiences. The ritual reached its crescendo as a particularly bright meteor blazed overhead. The combined magical energies pulsed once, twice, then settled into Hermione with a soft golden flash that illuminated the entire garden momentarily before fading to normal darkness. Hermione opened her eyes, which briefly shimmered with ancient awareness before returning to their normal warm brown. I remember, she whispered. Not everything, but enough. Harry moved to her side as the others maintained the ritual's closing phases. Are you all right? She nodded, taking his hand. Claude and Eleanor in France. Nefertari in Egypt. Bridget in Ireland. Her eyes met his with newfound recognition. I've known you so many times. Yes, Harry confirmed softly. Our souls tend to find each other. And the darkness, Hermione continued, her voice dropping. The one who always comes. Morrigan. She shivered. I remember him too. Different faces, different names, but always the same malevolence. Harry helped her to her feet as the ritual concluded, the stones and crystals now dark and ordinary once more. That's why I needed you to remember, Hermione. He's back, and he knows I've remembered everything. Lucius Malfoy, she said, the name coming to her through the newly awakened memories. He's hosting Morrigan now. Sirius approached, looking concerned. How do you feel, kitten? Any headache or disorientation? I feel more complete, Hermione answered thoughtfully. Like I've been walking around with only half my thoughts. She looked at Harry. But not everything is clear. Just fragments, impressions. That's by design, Harry explained. A full awakening would be too much at once. The memories will continue to integrate gradually, building on what you've already begun to remember naturally. Sebastian joined them, his dark eyes studying Hermione carefully. The integration appears stable. Her magical signature shows no signs of stress. We should still monitor her for the next few days, Lorelai added. Memory magic can have delayed effects. Hermione yawned suddenly, the events of the evening catching up with her 7-year-old body. I'm really tired, she admitted. I'll take you home, Sirius offered. Your parents will be wondering where you are. As Sirius escorted a sleepy Hermione back to her house, with a carefully crafted explanation about stargazing ready for her parents, Harry turned to Sebastian and Lorelai. Thank you both. I couldn't have managed this without you. Sebastian inclined his head. Our alliance serves mutual interests. But I admit, I find myself increasingly invested in your endeavors beyond mere pragmatism. He means he cares about you, little old one, Lorelai translated with a smile. As do I. Your soul has always fought for balance, it is an honor to assist once more. Harry smiled at the little old one nickname Lorelai had given him, acknowledging both his ancient soul and young body. There's something else I need to discuss with you both. Something potentially dangerous. They followed him back to the cellar, where Harry revealed a map of Britain marked with strange symbols and connecting lines. These are ley line intersections where I've detected unusual magical activity, he explained, pointing to several locations circled in red. Activity consistent with the kind of rituals Morrigan preferred in past incarnations. Sebastian frowned, studying the pattern. Soul magic. Preparation work for something larger. Exactly. And here's the concerning part. Harry pointed to dates marked beside each location. The intervals between rituals are decreasing. Whatever he's building toward is accelerating. Lorelai traced the pattern with iridescent fingers. A binding web. He's creating anchor points for a major working. That's my assessment as well, Harry agreed. The question is, what exactly is he binding? And to what purpose? Sebastian's expression darkened. Given his past attempts, I would guess immortality magic. Perhaps a more permanent solution to his body-switching problem. Or something to do with Voldemort, Harry suggested. Lucius was one of his most trusted followers. Morrigan may be working to restore him as part of a larger plan. You believe the Dark Lord still exists in some form? Lorelai asked. Harry nodded grimly. My scar connects me to him somehow. I can sometimes sense fragments. He's not gone, just diminished and disembodied. Then we need more information, Sebastian decided. I can send my people to observe the next likely ritual site. He studied the map. Based on this pattern, it would be here, near Glastonbury, within the next 2 weeks. That fits with the lunar cycle, Harry agreed. Full moon is in 12 days. I'll go personally, Sebastian offered. These workings would have significant magical signatures that might alert less experienced observers. I'd like to join you, Harry said. I might recognize elements specific to Morrigan's techniques. Sebastian frowned. Too dangerous. If Morrigan senses your presence, I can shield my magical signature, Harry countered. And I need to see what he's doing firsthand. Harry, Lorelei interjected gently, your body remains that of a child, regardless of your ancient soul. Your magical core, while extraordinary for your age, still has physical limitations. I'm aware of the risks, Harry insisted. But I've faced Morrigan across multiple lifetimes. I know his patterns better than anyone. Sebastian and Lorelei exchanged concerned glances, but ultimately nodded in agreement. We'll create a comprehensive safety plan, Sebastian conceded. Multiple escape routes, emergency port keys, and a full complement of my most trusted people as backup. And I shall provide water magic protections, Lorelei added. Morrigan has always been weakest against elemental magic he cannot corrupt. Harry nodded gratefully. Thank you. The more we know about his current plans, the better prepared we'll be when I enter Hogwarts. That's when I'll be most vulnerable to his influence through Draco Malfoy. As they finalized plans for the Glastonbury surveillance, Harry couldn't shake a growing sense of urgency. The ritual with Hermione had been a crucial step, having her remember, even partially, gave him a trusted ally who understood the true scope of their ancient conflict. But Morrigan's accelerating activity suggested time might be shorter than he'd initially calculated. The ancient game was moving faster now, pieces shifting across the board with increasing momentum. Harry only hoped that his preparations would be enough when the inevitable confrontation came. Glastonbury Tor rose like a sentinel against the night sky, its distinctive tower silhouetted by the full moon. At its base, hidden from casual observation by both natural terrain and magical concealment, Harry and Sebastian watched from a carefully warded position. They're arriving, Sebastian murmured, his vampiric senses detecting movement long before Harry could see anything. Harry nodded, focusing his attention through a pair of enchanted binoculars that could penetrate magical concealment. Through them, he observed hooded figures converging on a flat area near the base of the Tor. I count 7. No sign of Malfoy yet. The past 12 days had been intense. While preparing for this surveillance mission, Harry had also helped Hermione adjust to her partially awakened memories, monitored Dumbledore's subtle attempts to re-establish observation around his home, thwarted by Sirius's increasingly sophisticated ward work, and continued his own magical training. There, Sebastian whispered, pointing toward a shimmer of displacement air that indicated apparition. That magical signature is different. Stronger. Through the binoculars, Harry watched as Lucius Malfoy materialized, his platinum hair unmistakable even before he lowered his hood. The aristocrat moved with fluid grace to the center of the gathered figures, who formed a circle around him. It's starting, Harry whispered. The ritual began with Lucius raising his arms, speaking words that carried clearly to Harry's position despite the distance, a deliberate projection, suggesting confidence that no unwanted observers were present. On this seventh site of power, we anchor the binding web, Lucius intoned, his voice carrying harmonics that didn't match his usual speaking pattern. Morrigan's influence was clearly ascendant tonight. The vessel nears readiness. The anchors hold firm. The 7 other participants began a low chant, moving clockwise around Lucius while unrolling what appeared to be thin silver wire, forming an intricate pattern on the ground. As the pattern took shape, Harry recognized it with a cold shock, a soul containment diagram, ancient even when he had been Atlantes in Atlantis. He's creating a permanent vessel, Harry breathed. Not just temporary possession like with Malfoy, but something that could house his entire essence indefinitely. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. For himself or for Voldemort? Both, perhaps. Harry focused more intently as the ritual progressed. The pattern has elements I've never seen combined this way before. Lucius removed something from within his robes, a small crystal orb that glowed with sickly green energy. He placed it at the center of the wire pattern, then drew his wand and began tracing complex runes in the air above it. Each rune flared briefly before sinking into the ground, causing the wire pattern to pulse with corresponding energy. Blood magic, Sebastian observed as Lucius sliced his palm, allowing drops to fall onto the crystal. Harry nodded grimly. Ancient blood magic. See how the earth absorbs it? He's binding the ritual to the ley lines themselves. His scar began to prickle uncomfortably as the ritual intensified. This is far more sophisticated than anything I've seen him attempt in previous lives. The 7 attendants now each produced small objects, personal items by the look of them, and placed them at key intersections in the wire pattern. As each item was positioned, Lucius spoke a name, Bellatrix Lestrange, through blood and devotion. Bartemius Crouch, through sacrifice and loyalty. Peter Pettigrew, through betrayal and subservience. Severus Snape, through regret and obligation. Quirinus Quirrell, through ambition and weakness. Draco Malfoy, through lineage and destiny. When he reached the 7th object, a familiar-looking diary, Lucius's voice changed completely, becoming higher and colder, and through my own creation, the pathway remains open. Harry's scar exploded with pain so intense he nearly cried out. Only Sebastian's quick hand over his mouth prevented detection. Voldemort, Harry gasped when the pain subsided enough to speak. That last voice was Voldemort. They're working together, Morrigan and Voldemort. Sebastian's face showed rare alarm. We need to leave. Now. Your magical signature is fluctuating with the pain, he might detect it. But before they could retreat, the crystal in the ritual circle pulsed violently, sending a wave of energy outward in all directions. As it passed through their wards, Harry felt his scar split open, blood trickling down his forehead. In the circle, Lucius Malfoy went rigid, then slowly turned toward their hiding place, eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. Found you, came the layered voice, Lucius's refined tones overlaid with something ancient and malevolent. The remembered one awakens early this cycle. How inconvenient. The 7 attendants turned as one, wands raising toward Harry and Sebastian's position. Time to go, Sebastian hissed, grabbing Harry and activating their emergency port key, a small silver coin enchanted to transport them to a safe location. Nothing happened. Anti-port key wards, Harry realized. We'll have to break through on foot. Sebastian nodded grimly. Stay behind me. With vampiric speed, he moved between Harry and the approaching threat, his own magic manifesting as crimson energy around his hands. I'll create an opening. Run northwest toward the backup point. Harry didn't waste time arguing. Despite his ancient knowledge, his 7-year-old body and magical core had significant limitations. They had prepared for this possibility with multiple contingencies. The first spells flew toward them, not simple stunners, but viciously powerful dark magic that scorched the earth where they impacted. Sebastian deflected 2 blasts with his vampiric magic, then counterattacked with a burst of crimson energy that temporarily blinded their attackers. Now, he shouted. Harry ran, drawing on memories of a life spent as a scout in ancient Germanic forests to move swiftly and quietly through the darkness. Behind him, Sebastian engaged their pursuers, buying time with centuries-honed combat skills. But even vampire magic had limitations against 7 adult wizards led by an entity as powerful as Morrigan. Harry heard Sebastian cry out in pain, followed by Lucius's cold laugh. Run all you want, little Potter, called that terrible layered voice. You've only confirmed what I suspected. The game changes now. Harry reached the secondary position where Sirius waited anxiously with another port key. Sebastian's been hit, Harry gasped. We have to help him. Sirius's face hardened with determination. I'll go. You get back to safety, that's non-negotiable, pup. Before Harry could protest, Sirius activated a disillusionment charm and sprinted toward the sounds of combat, leaving Harry with strict instructions to use the port key if he didn't return within 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes stretched like an eternity. Harry monitored the situation through magical perception techniques, sensing the chaotic swirl of combat magic beyond the ridge. He could feel Sebastian's energy signature weakening, while Sirius's magic flared brilliantly as he engaged the dark wizards. Just when Harry had resolved to ignore instructions and help anyway, two figures appeared over the ridge, Sirius supporting a badly injured Sebastian. Harry activated the portkey the moment they reached him, and the three vanished from Glastonbury Tor, reappearing in the warded cellar beneath Harry's house. Healing potions, Harry instructed immediately, moving to Sebastian's side. The vampire had sustained severe magical burns across his chest and a deep cutting curse to his left arm. And blood-replenishing elixir. Sirius retrieved the needed items from a nearby cabinet while Harry began applying emergency magical first aid, drawing on techniques remembered from his life as a healer in ancient China. "What happened?" he asked as he worked. "Malfoy recognized me," Sirius replied grimly, helping administer the potions. "Seemed almost amused to see me defending you. Said something about bold patterns reasserting themselves before ordering the others to capture rather than kill." Sebastian winced as the healing potions began to work. "They're more organized than we anticipated." The ritual participants moved like a single unit, imperious perhaps, or some deeper form of control. "And the ritual itself?" Harry asked, applying essence of divinity to the worst wounds. "Completed despite our interruption," Sebastian confirmed. "Whatever binding web they were creating is now active." Harry sat back on his heels, processing this information. They were binding specific individuals to Voldemort's return, preparing vessels or anchors of some kind. Each person named has a connection to him. Including Snape and young Malfoy, Sirius noted with concern. "Both will be at Hogwarts when you attend." "And Quirrell, that name sounds familiar," Harry frowned. "I believe he teaches at Hogwarts too. Muggle studies, if I remember correctly from the school records we reviewed." Sebastian struggled to sit up despite his injuries. "The implications are disturbing. If Morrigan is preparing for Voldemort's return through individuals strategically placed at Hogwarts, then he's targeting me specifically," Harry finished. "Setting a trap for when I arrive at school." The three fell silent, contemplating this grim assessment. Finally, Sirius spoke up. "We need to accelerate our plans. 3 years until Hogwarts no longer seems like such a comfortable timeline." Harry nodded in agreement. "Morrigan knows I've remembered everything now. He'll adjust his strategies accordingly." He looked at Sebastian apologetically. "I'm sorry for putting you at risk tonight." The vampire waved away his concern. "I've faced worse in my centuries. More importantly, we gained crucial information." "Yes," Harry agreed. "We now know who's involved and that they're working toward Voldemort's restoration. The question is, what exactly does Morrigan gain from this alliance?" "Voldemort was mortal despite his attempts at immortality," Sebastian observed. "Morrigan is already effectively immortal through his body-switching ability. Why elevate a potential rival?" "A distraction, perhaps," Sirius suggested. "Keep the wizarding world focused on Voldemort while Morrigan pursues his true goals." "Or a sacrifice," Harry said quietly, a terrible suspicion forming. "What if Voldemort isn't the end goal, but rather a component of something larger? A power source?" Sebastian's eyes widened with comprehension. "The binding web, it could channel the magical energy of Voldemort's resurrection into something else entirely." "Exactly. Morrigan has always sought perfect immortality, not just existence through possession, but a permanent, indestructible form." Harry paced the cellar, ancient memories surfacing. In Atlantis, he nearly succeeded by channeling the Cataclysm's energy. What if Voldemort's return is meant to provide similar power? The implications were staggering. If correct, it meant the entire wizarding world's focus on Voldemort would be misdirected, while the true threat evolved beyond anyone's understanding. "We need more information," Sirius decided. "And more allies. People inside Hogwarts we can trust." "McGonagall might help if approached correctly," Harry suggested. "And I think it's time to find Remus Lupin." Sebastian nodded weakly from his makeshift bed. My network will increase surveillance on all the names mentioned in the ritual. And we should warn the Granger girl, if Morrigan knows you've remembered, he may target those close to you. Harry's expression hardened at the thought of Hermione in danger. I'll strengthen the wards around her home immediately. And we'll need to accelerate her magical training. As they continued planning countermeasures, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that tonight had fundamentally changed the game. Morrigan now knew with certainty that Harry had recovered his past life memories. The careful, patient approach he'd been cultivating might no longer be sufficient. There's something else we should consider, Harry said finally. I may need to enter the wizarding world more directly before Hogwarts. Establish allies and positions that will give me leverage when I do arrive at school. Sirius looked concerned. That would expose you to significantly more attention from both Dumbledore and Morrigan. Yes, Harry acknowledged. But staying hidden is no longer providing the advantage it once did. If they're preparing Hogwarts as a trap, I need to build support structures now, not later. After more discussion, they agreed on a compromise approach. Harry would make strategic, limited appearances in Wizarding Society, carefully managed by Sirius and coordinated with their growing network of allies. Sebastian would recover at a secure vampire haven before rejoining their efforts, and Hermione would be brought fully into their plans, with additional protective measures implemented around her and her family. As dawn approached and the immediate crisis planning concluded, Harry stood alone in the garden, watching the sky lighten. The confrontation at Glastonbury had changed everything. Childhood, even his unusual version of it, was ending prematurely. The ancient conflict between his soul and Morrigan's was accelerating toward a new climax. This time, at least, he had remembered early enough to prepare. This time, perhaps, the cycle might finally be broken. But as his scar continued to prickle with lingering pain, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that both Voldemort and Morrigan were already several steps ahead in this deadly chess match, and that the pieces were moving toward an endgame he couldn't yet fully perceive. The following months brought rapid changes to Harry's carefully constructed world. After the Glastonbury incident, Hermione's parents were discreetly informed about the magical world's dangers, not the full truth about reincarnation and ancient enemies, but enough to understand the need for protective measures around their family. Richard and Jean Granger, both rational, intelligent people, adapted remarkably well to these revelations. After their initial shock and concern, they worked with Sirius to establish emergency protocols and allowed enhanced magical wards around their home and dental practice. Hermione herself thrived with her partially awakened memories, advancing rapidly in both magical control and integration of her past life knowledge. She displayed particular talent for ancient runes and arithmancy, skills developed across multiple incarnations. Harry's network of allies continued to expand. Remus Lupin was located in northern Scotland and cautiously brought into their confidence. Though initially skeptical about Harry's unusual maturity and knowledge, the werewolf's keen senses detected something beyond normal childhood development in his best friend's son. After several long conversations and a few demonstrations of Harry's recovered magical techniques, Remus committed himself fully to their cause. Through discreet channels, Harry also established contact with Amelia Bones, whose position as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement provided valuable insights into ministry activities. While not privy to the full truth about past lives, Amelia recognized the political manipulations occurring around the boy who lived and offered her quiet support. Most crucially, Harry implemented what Sirius jokingly called Operation Public Image, carefully orchestrated appearances in Wizarding Society designed to establish Harry Potter as intelligent, well-adjusted, and firmly under Sirius's positive influence rather than Dumbledore's control. A visit to Quality Quidditch Supplies, photographed by a random shopper, actually one of Sebastian's human associates. An ice cream at Florian Fortescue's with Sirius, coincidentally, observed by several prominent wizarding families. A polite encounter with Augusta Longbottom and young Neville at a magical plant nursery, laying groundwork for future alliance with another soul Harry had known before. Each appearance generated precisely the type of positive gossip they intended. The boy who lived was happy, healthy, and thriving under his godfather's care. By the time the Daily Prophet ran a feature article titled, "Boy Who Lived Building Bridges, Harry Potter's Return to Wizarding Society," public opinion had shifted notably in their favor. Dumbledore made no direct moves against this campaign, though Harry occasionally sensed magical surveillance that bore the headmaster's distinctive signature. Their confrontation at the woods had apparently convinced Dumbledore to adopt a wait-and-see approach rather than direct opposition. As for Morgan/Malfoy, his response was more concerning. Lucius increased his ministry activities, particularly around educational reforms that would affect Hogwarts. New security measures, curriculum reviews, and budget allocations all bore his influence, subtly reshaping the school environment Harry would enter. Most alarmingly, Sebastian's network reported that Quirinus Quirrell had taken a sabbatical to gain practical experience, before switching from Muggle studies to defense against the dark arts. The timing aligned perfectly with the binding ritual at Glastonbury, suggesting Quirrell's role in Morrigan's plans was significant. 9 months after Glastonbury, Harry celebrated his 8th birthday with a small but meaningful gathering. Hermione and her parents, Sirius, Remus, Sebastian, fully recovered, and Lorelai joined him at the Potter property for what appeared to outsiders as a simple children's party but was in truth a council of war. The situation accelerates faster than anticipated, Sebastian reported as they gathered in the warded cellar after the official celebration ended. Our sources confirm Quirrell is in Albania, where the last traces of Voldemort's essence were rumored to linger. Albania matches the magical signature I've occasionally sensed through my scar, Harry confirmed. They're preparing for direct contact. Sirius spread out a map marked with locations of recent dark magical activity. The binding web Malfoy established has activated twice more in the last 3 months. Each activation corresponds with one of these events. He pointed to circled locations in Britain. Disappearances, primarily, but also strange magical phenomena reported by Muggle authorities and investigated by Obliviators. They're testing the network, Hermione observed, her expression serious beyond her years. The memories of Claude the astronomer were particularly strong in her now, enhancing her analytical abilities. Establishing power flow before the main event. Remus, still sometimes startled by Hermione's advanced insights, nodded in agreement. Whatever they're building toward, it seems likely to coincide with Harry's arrival at Hogwarts. The focus on the school is too deliberate to be coincidence. We need to consider the Philosopher's Stone, Lorelai said quietly. All eyes turned to the Selkie woman. What about it? Sirius asked. That's Nicholas Flamel's creation, one of the most closely guarded magical artifacts in existence. And soon to be at Hogwarts, Lorelai replied. My people hear many secrets that pass through water. The merfolk of the Black Lake whisper that Dumbledore has arranged to protect the stone at the school beginning the same year Harry arrives. Harry's eyes widened. That can't be coincidence. The stone creates the elixir of life, perfect bait for Voldemort's restoration. And perfect power source for whatever Morrigan truly intends, Sebastian added grimly. So Dumbledore is using the stone as bait to trap Voldemort, Remus summarized, not knowing that Morrigan intends to use both the stone and Voldemort for his own purposes. And I'm meant to be caught in the middle, Harry concluded. Probably as an additional power source or sacrifice. Hermione reached for Harry's hand, squeezing it supportively. So we need our own plans for when you reach Hogwarts. The discussion continued for hours, contingencies and strategies mapped out with increasing detail. By evening's end, they had established primary objectives for the remaining 3 years before Harry's official entry into Hogwarts: continue building political support through strategic alliances with key wizarding families, identify potential allies among Hogwarts staff beyond McGonagall, prepare countermeasures for the specific threats posed by Quirrell, Snape, and Draco Malfoy, develop methods to neutralize or redirect the power of the Philosopher's Stone, locate and secure any additional Voldemort's soul fragments, which Harry now suspected existed based on his scar connection. As the meeting concluded, Harry felt both the weight of responsibility and a strange sense of clarity. The path ahead was dangerous, but for the first time in countless incarnations, he faced Morrigan with full awareness of their eternal conflict and with allies who understood the true stakes. "We'll be ready," Hermione promised as they said goodnight. "Whatever comes." Harry nodded, grateful once again for the soul connection that had brought them together across so many lifetimes. "We will." This cycle ends differently. 2 years passed with increasing intensity. By his 10th birthday, Harry had established himself as a noteworthy presence in Wizarding Britain despite his limited public appearances. The Potter-Black alliance was recognized as an emerging political force, with Sirius skillfully leveraging his position as Lord Black and Harry's guardian to influence Wizengamot decisions. Hermione continued her remarkable development, her partially awakened memories now fully integrated with her brilliant young mind. She had mastered wandless magic beyond what most adult witches could manage and developed a comprehensive understanding of magical theory that blended ancient knowledge with modern innovations. Their network of allies expanded strategically. Augusta Longbottom, impressed by Harry's respectful interest in Neville's herbology talent, became a valuable political supporter. Amelia Bones provided crucial ministry intelligence while subtly redirecting investigations away from Harry's unusual activities. Ted and Andromeda Tonks offered legal expertise, while their daughter Nymphadora, now an Auror trainee, became an enthusiastic member of what Sirius jokingly called Harry's ancient army. Most surprisingly, Narcissa Malfoy made discreet contact through Andromeda, her estranged sister. While not explicitly betraying her husband, Narcissa expressed concern about Draco's role in what she described as dangerous political maneuvering. This tentative connection provided valuable insights into Malfoy Manor activities, though Harry remained cautious about Narcissa's true motivations. The most significant development came shortly after Harry's 10th birthday, when his monitoring charms detected unusual magic at Hogwarts during summer break. Using a complex scrying ritual developed across several lifetimes, Harry observed Dumbledore and several professors constructing elaborate protections around what could only be the Philosopher's Stone. "They're not even being subtle about it," Sirius commented as they watched the magical preparations through the scrying pool. "These protections are practically designed to be overcome by first years with the right skill set." "A test," Harry agreed. "Dumbledore's setting a stage to see how I'll respond to Voldemort's presence." Putting children at risk for his greater plans, Remus added with uncharacteristic bitterness. "I respected him once, but this." Harry studied the images carefully. "We need to adapt our approach. If Dumbledore expects me to confront Quirrell directly, we should prepare alternative interventions." In the months that followed, Harry intensified his preparations for Hogwarts. Though his Hogwarts letter wouldn't arrive for another year, they now had confirmation that both Dumbledore and Morrigan were orchestrating events around his anticipated arrival. Through Sebastian's connections, they tracked Quirrell's movements as he returned from Albania, notably changed in both manner and magical signature. The defense professor now exhibited clear signs of possession, though whether by Voldemort alone or some combination of Voldemort and Morrigan's influence remained unclear. "The pieces are moving into position," Harry observed during a strategy session 6 months before his 11th birthday. Quirrell possessed, the stone nearly in place, Malfoy increasing his influence over the school governors. And Dumbledore watching it all happen, thinking he controls the game, Sirius added. "What's our next move?" Hermione asked. Her parents had reluctantly agreed to send her to Hogwarts with Harry, recognizing that keeping her from the magical world would be both impossible and potentially more dangerous given her connection to Harry. Harry unrolled a detailed map of Hogwarts, far more complete than the official blueprints, incorporating knowledge from his time as Helena Ravenclaw. "We know the general structure of the stone's protections based on our surveillance. Each is designed to be overcome through specific skills that, coincidentally, match what Dumbledore would expect from me and whatever friends I might make. So he anticipates you forming a team to reach the stone," Remus noted. "Probably expects you to befriend Ron Weasley, given your parents' connection to the family." Harry nodded. "Which gives us an opportunity to subvert expectations. While Dumbledore watches for a frontal approach through his obstacle course, we can implement alternative plans." The strategy they developed was multi-layered. Harry would indeed form connections with various first years, including Ron Weasley, but his core alliance would be with souls he'd known before, Hermione, of course, but also Neville Longbottom and, if Harry's instincts proved correct, Luna Lovegood, though she wouldn't arrive until the following year. Meanwhile, Sebastian would position operatives in Hogsmeade to monitor the school's surroundings, and Sirius would accelerate his campaign for a position on the Hogwarts Board of Governors, creating an official channel to influence school policies. Most crucially, Harry would maintain the public appearance of an extraordinarily talented but still fundamentally normal 11-year-old boy. His true knowledge and capabilities would remain hidden from all but his closest allies, allowing him to observe both Dumbledore's and Morrigan's machinations without revealing his full awareness of the ancient game. As his 11th birthday approached, bringing with it the imminent arrival of his Hogwarts letter, Harry found himself reflecting on the remarkable journey of the past 5 years. From a confused 6-year-old discovering his past lives to a prepared strategic planner with centuries of knowledge at his disposal, the transformation had been extraordinary. Yet beneath the confidence and planning lay a deeper concern. Despite all their preparations, Harry sensed Morrigan still held critical advantages. The ancient enemy had centuries of his own preparations embedded in wizarding society, influences and traps Harry had only begun to uncover. 2 weeks before his birthday, Harry sat with Hermione in their favorite spot on the hill behind her house, watching the sunset. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly, always perceptive to his moods. Harry considered the question seriously. "Not afraid exactly. But, aware of the stakes. This confrontation has been building across many lifetimes. But this time is different," Hermione pointed out. "This time you remember from the beginning. This time you have all of us." Harry smiled, taking her hand. "That's what gives me hope. In previous cycles, I always faced him alone in the end. This time." He squeezed her hand. "This time, the pattern changes." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the peaceful neighborhood, Harry felt both the weight of approaching conflict and the strength of the bonds he'd formed. Whatever Morrigan planned, whatever traps awaited at Hogwarts, he would not face them unprepared or alone. The ancient cycle was reaching its critical point once more, but this time, perhaps, with a different outcome. The morning of Harry's 11th birthday dawned bright and clear. Though they had known his Hogwarts letter would arrive today, there was still a special thrill when the owl swooped down during breakfast, dropping the heavy parchment envelope beside Harry's plate. "It's really happening," Sirius said with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "James and Lily would be so proud, pup." Harry picked up the envelope, running his fingers over the Hogwarts seal. Despite all his preparations and ancient memories, he found himself unexpectedly moved by this tangible connection to his parents' world. "Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry," he read aloud, opening the letter. The familiar text listing required supplies and the September 1st departure date brought a smile to his face. Just like they received. Remus, who had joined them for the occasion, nodded with misty eyes. "Your father carried his letter everywhere for weeks. Couldn't stop talking about it." The simple breakfast became a small celebration as Hermione and her parents arrived, followed by Sebastian, bearing an ancient tome as a gift, and Lorelei, with a protective amulet crafted by the Selkie elders. "Shall we make a day of it in Diagon Alley?" Sirius suggested. "Get your school supplies and have a proper celebration." Harry nodded enthusiastically. Though he'd visited the wizarding shopping district numerous times over the past years, doing so as an official Hogwarts student-to-be held special significance. Their arrival in Diagon Alley generated the expected attention. Despite their careful management of Harry's public appearances, the boy who lived shopping for his first year's supplies was bound to create a stir. Whispers and pointing followed their group as they moved from shop to shop, but Sirius's protective presence and their well-practiced routine kept interactions manageable. At Flourish and Blots, Harry deliberately struck up a conversation with a red-haired family that could only be the Weasleys. Though he'd never officially met them, Harry recognized Ron from his strategic research into potential classmates. "First year too?" he asked casually, reaching for the same potions textbook Ron was examining. The redhead looked up, his expression shifting from casual to shocked as he recognized Harry. "You're Harry Potter." Harry smiled, used to this reaction. "And you're a Weasley, I'm guessing. Sirius has mentioned your family." This led to introductions to the entire Weasley clan present, parents Arthur and Molly, older brothers Percy, Fred and George, younger sister Ginny, and Ron himself. Harry noted with interest that while most of the family exhibited genuine warmth, Molly's smile seemed slightly forced, her eyes occasionally darting to where Sirius chatted with Remus nearby. "Dumbledore loyalist," Harry catalogued mentally. "Probably expected me to arrive here unaccompanied or with Hagrid, not with my rightful guardian." He maintained a friendly conversation, particularly connecting with the twins over their obvious mischievous nature and Ron over Quidditch. When Hermione joined them, Harry made introductions, carefully observing how Ron reacted to her enthusiastic knowledge of magical texts. As expected, a slight wariness entered the redhead's expression. They would not be natural friends without Harry as a buffer. "Hope to see you on the train," Harry said as they parted ways, having laid groundwork for future acquaintance without committing to immediate friendship. Their shopping continued strategically. At Madame Malkin's, Harry arranged to be fitted alongside Draco Malfoy, gaining his first direct observation of Morrigan's potential agent at Hogwarts. The blonde boy appeared exactly as intelligence had suggested, arrogant, prejudiced, but showing no obvious signs of direct influence from Morrigan beyond typical pure-blood indoctrination. "Interesting," Harry remarked to Hermione as they left the shop. "He seems like an ordinary spoiled child, not an active participant in his father's schemes." "A pawn rather than a player," Hermione agreed. "At least for now." Their final stop was Ollivanders, where Harry faced a moment of genuine uncertainty. While he had been using wands obtained through Sebastian's connections for practice, receiving his official wand represented a magical milestone with unpredictable elements. Ollivander's eerie welcome and subsequent wand-matching process proved even more significant than anticipated. After trying dozens of wands, the wand-maker finally presented one with a troubled expression. "Holly and Phoenix Feather, 11 inches, nice and supple," Ollivander announced, handing it to Harry with unusual hesitation. The moment Harry's fingers closed around it, he felt a surge of warmth and belonging far beyond his experience with practice wands. Golden sparks showered from the tip, illuminating the dusty shop. "Curious," Ollivander murmured. "Very curious." Harry, knowing what was coming, asked anyway, "What's curious, sir?" "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. The phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar." Though Harry had anticipated this connection, feeling it confirmed sent a chill through him. The wand truly was Voldemort's brother, a connection that might prove either vulnerability or advantage in the coming confrontation. As they completed their purchases and headed to the Leaky Cauldron for a celebration lunch, Harry reflected on the day's observations. Their groundwork had been laid effectively, connections initiated with the Weasleys, first assessment of Draco Malfoy completed, and his official entry into the wizarding world accomplished with appropriate visibility but without excessive exposure. The next phase would be the journey to Hogwarts itself, where the real game would begin. Quirrell with Voldemort's possession, Snape with his complex loyalties, Dumbledore with his manipulative schemes, and Morrigan orchestrating events from behind Lucius Malfoy's aristocratic facade, all waited at the ancient castle, along with the Philosopher's Stone and whatever trap it represented. Yet as Harry celebrated his birthday surrounded by allies who understood the true stakes, he felt a cautious optimism. For the first time in this eternal cycle, he entered the confrontation with Morrigan fully aware and prepared, his ancient knowledge intact from the beginning. Whatever awaited at Hogwarts, the pattern had already changed. This time, perhaps, the outcome would change as well. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity as Harry, Hermione, Sirius, and Remus arrived on September 1. Steam billowed from the Hogwarts Express, and families crowded the platform for emotional farewells. Remember everything we discussed, Sirius said, kneeling to eye level with Harry despite the public setting. Maintain your cover, watch for unusual activities, and use the communication mirror if anything seems wrong. Harry nodded, embracing his godfather tightly. I'll be careful. And I'll keep everyone updated. The past month had been intensely focused on final preparations. Harry and Hermione had practiced defensive magic extensively, focusing on techniques that could be explained as prodigious talent rather than ancient knowledge if witnessed by professors. Sebastian's network had confirmed Quirrell's return to Britain with clear signs of possession, and their sources reported increased activity at Malfoy Manor, suggesting Lucius was preparing his own moves around Harry's arrival at Hogwarts. Most concerning had been Dumbledore's subtle attempts to regain influence. The headmaster had sent Hagrid with a backup key to Harry's vault, apparently not realizing Harry had long since taken control of his family finances. When that failed, McGonagall had visited with routine questions about his preparedness for school, a transparent attempt to assess how his years with Sirius had shaped his development. Stay together on the train, Remus advised as they prepared to board. First impressions matter. The alliances you form today will set the tone for the year. After final hugs and a tearful farewell from the Grangers, who had come to see Hermione off separately before joining them on the magical platform, Harry and Hermione boarded the train, finding an empty compartment near the middle. It begins now, Hermione said quietly as they settled in. Everything we've prepared for. Harry nodded, gazing out at the platform where families continued their goodbyes. 5 years of planning, finally moving into action. Their compartment door slid open, revealing Neville Longbottom clutching a toad and looking anxious. Sorry, everywhere else is full. Mind if I join you? Of course not, Harry welcomed him warmly. Though they had met briefly during Harry's orchestrated public appearances, this would be their first real opportunity for connection. We've got plenty of room. I'm Harry, and this is Hermione. Neville Longbottom, he replied, sitting down nervously. And this is Trevor. He keeps trying to escape. Hermione smiled kindly. I know a small containment charm that might help. Nothing harmful, just a gentle boundary. As she demonstrated the spell for a grateful Neville, Harry observed his classmate carefully. In a past life, Neville's soul had been Takashi, a samurai who had fought alongside Harry, then Hiroshi, with remarkable courage. That essential nature remained, Harry could see, though currently buried beneath layers of insecurity and self-doubt. Their conversation flowed naturally into backgrounds and expectations for Hogwarts. Harry intentionally mentioned his parents' friendship with Neville's, establishing a connection that seemed to both surprise and please the shy boy. Gran never told me that, Neville said, looking thoughtful. She doesn't talk about my parents much, it's too painful for her. My godfather has some wonderful stories about them all during their training, Harry offered. I'd be happy to share them sometime. The genuine gratitude in Neville's expression confirmed Harry's approach. This soul connection might take time to develop fully, but the foundation was being laid. Their compartment door slid open again, revealing Ron Weasley. Mind if I join? Everywhere else is, he broke off, recognizing Harry. Oh, hey. From the bookshop, right? Harry welcomed him in, completing the core group he had anticipated forming initially. Though Ron lacked the soul connection Harry shared with Hermione and Neville, his strategic position within a light-aligned pure-blood family made him a valuable ally. As the train pulled away from the station, their conversation meandered through typical first-year topics, houses, classes, and Quidditch. Harry carefully maintained his role as an enthusiastic but not suspiciously knowledgeable 11-year-old, allowing his genuine excitement about returning to Hogwarts to shine through. When the trolley which arrived, Harry purchased treats for everyone, using the moment to establish camaraderie rather than highlight economic differences. This gesture particularly seemed to ease Ron's occasional awkwardness around Harry's fame. The peaceful journey was interrupted mid-afternoon when their compartment door opened yet again, revealing Draco Malfoy flanked by 2 large boys. "They're saying Harry Potter's in this compartment," Draco announced, his gaze settling on Harry. "Is it you?" Harry nodded, studying the boy carefully for any signs of direct influence from Morrigan. "Yes. And you're Draco Malfoy." He intentionally kept his tone neutral, neither friendly nor hostile. Draco seemed pleased at being recognized. "This is Crabbe and Goyle," he said, nodding to his companions. His gaze swept dismissively over the others before returning to Harry. "You'll soon find that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." He extended his hand, exactly as intelligence had suggested he would. This moment represented a critical junction. How Harry responded would set their relationship's trajectory. Harry stood, taking Draco's hand briefly but not warmly. "I appreciate the offer, Malfoy. But I prefer to judge people individually rather than by family reputation." He maintained eye contact, his tone respectful but firm. "Perhaps we'll have classes together and can get to know each other there." It was a masterful deflection, neither accepting nor rejecting the alliance outright, while subtly establishing Harry's independence. Draco looked briefly confused, clearly having expected either eager acceptance or outright rejection. "Well, I suppose that's fair," he conceded with slight uncertainty. "See you at the sorting, then." After they departed, Ron looked at Harry with amazement. "That was brilliant. Didn't say no, didn't say yes, just, neutral." "Everyone deserves a chance to be more than their family name," Harry replied, thinking of both Draco's potential future choices and Sirius's break from the Black family tradition. Even Malfoy's. The remainder of the journey passed without major incident. As darkness fell and Hogwarts drew near, Harry felt a complex mixture of emotions. Beyond the natural excitement of any first-year student lay deeper currents, the joy of returning to a place that had been home in a previous life, the strategic tension of entering a space where both Dumbledore and Morrigan had prepared their moves, and a profound sense that events set in motion across many lifetimes were accelerating toward some crucial climax. When they disembarked at Hogsmeade Station, Harry immediately spotted Hagrid calling for first years. The half-giant beamed upon seeing him. "Harry. Good to see ya." His genuine warmth contrasted with the calculating intentions Harry had sensed from Dumbledore. "Yeah, look just like your dad, but with your mum's eyes." "It's good to meet you, Hagrid," Harry replied sincerely. "Sirius has told me about you." Something complicated passed across Hagrid's expression at the mention of Sirius, loyalty to Dumbledore conflicting with obvious affection for Harry. "Right, well, first year's this way to the boats." The traditional journey across the lake offered Harry his first view of Hogwarts in this lifetime, though his soul remembered it from Helena Ravenclaw's perspective and several student incarnations throughout the school's history. The castle rose majestically against the night sky, windows glowing with welcoming light. Beside him in the boat, Hermione squeezed his hand. "It's even more beautiful than I remembered," she whispered, her own past life memories of the castle surfacing. When they reached the castle, Professor McGonagall greeted them with her customary stern efficiency, though Harry noticed her gaze lingering on him with particular interest. The first years waited nervously for the sorting ceremony, speculation about the process running rampant among them. "Fred and George said we have to wrestle a troll," Ron whispered anxiously. Harry smiled reassuringly. "I doubt they'd start us off with something that dangerous. Probably just a magical assessment of some kind." When the ghosts appeared, floating through the wall during their wait, Harry experienced an unexpected moment of connection. The Grey Lady, Helena Ravenclaw's ghost, paused briefly as she passed, her ethereal eyes widening slightly as they met Harry's. A flash of recognition crossed her face before she continued with the others, leaving Harry to wonder if some essence of his time as Helena remained perceptible to her. Finally, McGonagall returned to lead them into the Great Hall. The enchanted ceiling, floating candles, and 4 long house tables created exactly the magical first impression Hogwarts was famous for. At the staff table, Harry carefully noted each professor's position, particularly Quirrell with his distinctive turban, likely concealing physical evidence of Voldemort's possession, and Snape, whose dark eyes tracked Harry with undisguised intensity. And there, at the center, sat Albus Dumbledore. The headmaster's eyes twinkled benevolently as they swept over the first years, lingering just a moment longer on Harry. Though his expression remained grandfatherly, Harry sensed the calculating assessment beneath. The sorting began with the hat's traditional song, followed by McGonagall calling students alphabetically. Harry watched with interest as their small group began to separate, Hermione to Gryffindor after a longer-than-expected deliberation with the hat, likely discussing her unusual mental makeup with partially awakened past lives, Neville also to Gryffindor following another extended sorting, and Draco immediately to Slytherin. When McGonagall called, "Potter, Harry," the hall fell silent. Every eye followed Harry's progress to the stool, whispers rippling through the crowd. As the hat dropped over his eyes, Harry prepared for a complex conversation. "Well, well," said a small voice in his ear. "What have we here? Oh my! Oh my!" The hat seemed genuinely startled, its consciousness brushing against Harry's highly unusual mental landscape. 200 past lives, fully accessible. I haven't seen such a thing since, well, not in all my centuries of sorting. You're the remembered one, the soul that keeps returning to face, ah, I see it now. The ancient cycle. The eternal conflict. Yes, Harry thought back. And I need your discretion. Dumbledore cannot access what I see, the hat assured him. My magic prevents it, though he has tried with certain students of particular interest. Now, where to put you? With such a mind, such history. I need to be where I can best prepare for what's coming, Harry explained mentally. Where my allies are gathering. Your soul has resided in all 4 houses across different lifetimes, the hat mused. Ravenclaw when you were Helena herself, Slytherin during your time as Edmund Blackwell, Hufflepuff as Helga's favorite student Elric. But I sense this time, the path lies with the lions. Gryffindor, Harry agreed. Where bravery will be needed. Indeed. Though remember, young but ancient one, the bravery needed may not always be the obvious kind. Sometimes the greatest courage lies in restraint, in allowing events to unfold when intervention seems irresistible. With that cryptic advice, the hat announced, Gryffindor, to the hall. The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers, with the Weasley twins chanting, "We got Potter. We got Potter." Harry joined Hermione at the table, exchanging a significant glance that acknowledged the first phase of their plan had succeeded. As the sorting concluded with Ron predictably joining Gryffindor, Dumbledore rose for his welcome speech. The headmaster's eccentric words, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, seemed designed to present an image of harmless eccentricity rather than the calculating strategist Harry knew him to be. During the feast, Harry balanced multiple conversational objectives, bonding with his fellow Gryffindors, establishing his public persona as friendly and modestly talented rather than extraordinary, and carefully observing the staff table interactions. He noted with interest how Quirrell appeared to deliberately avoid Snape's attempts at conversation, while Snape himself alternated between glaring at Harry and watching Quirrell with suspicious intensity. "That's Professor Snape," Percy Weasley informed Harry, following his gaze. "Potions master, but everyone knows he wants Quirrell's job. Teaches defense against the dark arts, that one. Looking rather peaky this year, isn't he? Been like that since he came back from his sabbatical," Fred, or possibly George, added. "Used to teach Muggle studies. Came back wearing that ridiculous turban and jumping at shadows." Harry filed this information away, though it merely confirmed their intelligence. As the feast concluded and Dumbledore made announcements, including the ominous warning about the third-floor corridor that practically screamed, "Philosopher's Stone hidden here," Harry mentally reviewed their immediate objectives. First, establish a normal routine that wouldn't attract undue attention. Second, evaluate each professor's attitudes and potential allegiances. Third, begin carefully mapping the castle's current state compared to his memories from previous lives. Fourth, monitor Quirrell's activities while maintaining safe distance from direct contact. As Percy led the first years to Gryffindor Tower, Harry walked alongside Neville, intentionally including the shy boy in conversation. Ron and Hermione flanked them, creating the initial formation of the core group Harry intended to build. "Did you notice how specific Dumbledore's warning was?" Hermione murmured quietly to Harry. "A painful death. In a school full of children." Practically an invitation to the curious, Harry agreed under his breath. Especially with no explanation offered. Upon reaching the tower and learning the password, Caput Draconis, the first years separated to their dormitories. Harry found himself sharing with Ron, Neville, Dean Thomas, and Seamus Finnegan, exactly as their intelligence had suggested likely. As he settled into the four-poster bed that would be his for the next 7 years, Harry reflected on the evening's developments. Everything had proceeded according to their projections, which was both reassuring and slightly concerning. Had they genuinely anticipated events accurately, or were both Dumbledore and Morgan allowing things to unfold according to their own plans? Either way, the game had officially begun. The pieces were on the board, the opening moves made. Unlike previous lifetimes, Harry entered this confrontation with full awareness of the eternal cycle and the ancient enemy waiting in the shadows. This time, perhaps, he might finally break the pattern that had repeated for thousands of years. This time, with his memories intact from the beginning, he had a chance to end Morrigan's threat once and for all. As Harry drifted toward sleep, his last thought was a silent promise to all those who had come before, all the incarnations of his soul who had faced this enemy across the centuries. This time would be different. This time, the remembered one would prevail. Chapter 3, Ancient Enemies. Harry woke at exactly 5:43 a.m. on his first day at Hogwarts, a habit carried over from lifetimes spent as warriors, monks, and mages who rose with the sun. The Gryffindor dormitory remained silent around him, his fellow first-years still deep in dreams of the magical feast and sorting ceremony from the night before. Perfect. This early solitude would give him a chance to begin mapping the castle's current layout against his memories. He slipped from bed and dressed quietly, retrieving the enchanted journal he and Hermione had prepared for secure communication. A quick note to update Sirius on the sorting and initial observations, then Harry made his way down to the empty common room. The fat lady raised an eyebrow when he emerged. "Bit early for a first year to be exploring, isn't it?" "Couldn't sleep," Harry replied with an innocent smile. "Too excited." The portrait huffed but swung open. "Mind Filch doesn't catch you wandering, young man." Harry navigated the corridors with practiced ease, despite officially never having walked them before. His memories as Helena Ravenclaw provided the castle's original layout, while subsequent lifetimes as students offered glimpses of how Hogwarts had evolved over centuries. Still, the castle liked to change, and Harry needed current knowledge of its passages, particularly those near the third-floor corridor Dumbledore had so blatantly marked as forbidden. As he walked, Harry extended his magical senses, a technique from his life as an Atlantean sentinel, feeling for traces of unusual energy. The castle thrummed with centuries of layered enchantments, but something distinctive radiated from the third floor, a complex magical signature that hadn't been present in his previous memories of Hogwarts. "The stone's protections," he murmured to himself, carefully avoiding getting too close. Direct proximity might alert Dumbledore to his exploration. "Talking to yourself, Mr. Potter. A concerning habit in one so young." Harry turned smoothly, unsurprised despite the silent approach. Professor McGonagall stood watching him, her expression a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Good morning, Professor," Harry greeted cheerfully. "I woke up early and wanted to explore a bit before breakfast." Most first-years struggle to find the Great Hall, let alone navigate these corridors with such confidence, she observed, adjusting her spectacles. Harry allowed a hint of embarrassment. "Sirius told me so many stories about Hogwarts, I guess I got a good mental map. He and my dad explored a lot during their time here." At the mention of James, McGonagall's expression softened slightly. "Indeed they did. Often to the distress of their professors." She studied him for a moment longer. "You have your mother's sense about you, though." I hope we'll see more of her thoughtfulness than your father's penchant for adventure. I'd like to make them both proud, Harry replied sincerely. Something in his tone seemed to resonate with the stern professor. I believe you will, Mr. Potter. Now, perhaps we should head toward breakfast. Your classmates will be rising soon, and your schedule awaits. As they walked together, Harry sensed an opportunity to establish initial rapport with a potentially crucial ally. Professor, may I ask you something about my mother? Sirius tells wonderful stories about my father, but he didn't know my mother as well before they left school. McGonagall's pace slowed slightly. Lily Evans was exceptionally talented, particularly in charms and potions. But what distinguished her most was her sense of justice. She stood up for others, regardless of house or blood status. A faint smile touched her lips. She once hexed James rather impressively for bullying a Slytherin student. Snape, Harry said, watching her reaction closely. McGonagall's eyebrows rose slightly. Yes. Professor Snape was once friends with your mother, though their paths diverged during their later years at Hogwarts. She looked at him curiously. How did you know? Sirius mentioned it once, Harry explained, which wasn't entirely untrue. He said their friendship ended badly, but didn't know the details. That is between Professor Snape and your mother, McGonagall replied carefully. But know that complicated histories often inform present behaviors, Mr. Potter. Message received, be prepared for Snape's potential hostility. Harry nodded understanding as they reached the Great Hall, where early rising students had begun to gather for breakfast. Thank you, Professor, Harry said as they parted. For the company and the story. McGonagall inclined her head slightly. Enjoy your first day of classes, Mr. Potter. I look forward to seeing your work in Transfiguration. Harry joined the Gryffindor table, strategically choosing a spot where he could observe the staff entrance. Within minutes, Hermione arrived, making a beeline for him with poorly concealed urgency. You didn't tell me you were getting up early, she whispered, sliding onto the bench beside him. Opportunity presented itself, Harry replied quietly. Had a nice chat with McGonagall. And? Potential ally, as we suspected. She's curious about me but not suspicious in the way Dumbledore is. Hermione nodded, serving herself porridge while keeping her voice low. I checked the library entrance on my way down. Exactly where Claude remembered it, but the security enchantments have been updated. Their conversation paused as Ron and Neville joined them, both looking sleepy but excited for their first day. Harry smoothly transitioned to first-year enthusiasm, discussing class schedules and house points while continuing to monitor the staff table from the corner of his eye. Quirrell arrived looking pale and twitchy, his turban slightly askew. Harry felt a faint prickling in his scar as the defense professor took his seat, a physical confirmation of Voldemort's presence. More interesting was Snape's reaction. The potions master watched Quirrell with barely disguised suspicion, his dark eyes occasionally flicking toward the Gryffindor table to track Harry. Mail's here, Ron announced as hundreds of owls swooped into the Great Hall. A handsome eagle owl landed gracefully beside Harry's plate, delivering a small package with elegant handwriting, use with discretion. S. Inside was a seemingly ordinary silver pocket watch that Harry recognized immediately as one of Sebastian's special creations, a magical detection device disguised as a common accessory. Their schedules arrived shortly after, delivered by prefects making their way down the table. Harry quickly memorized his, noting with interest that their first defense against the dark arts lesson wouldn't come until Thursday. That gave him 3 days to observe Quirrell from a safe distance before direct interaction. Double potions with the Slytherins on Friday, Ron groaned. Fred and George say Snape's horrible to everyone except his own house. We'll manage, Harry said confidently. Let's focus on Transfiguration this morning. That's supposed to be really challenging. As they left the Great Hall for their first class, Harry caught Dumbledore watching him with that same calculating twinkle. The headmaster nodded slightly in acknowledgement, his expression benign yet evaluating. Harry returned the nod with a small, innocent smile, exactly what would be expected from an 11-year-old still awed by Hogwarts and its legendary headmaster. The first week of classes provided Harry with crucial opportunities to establish his public persona while gathering intelligence on Hogwarts' current state. In Transfiguration, he deliberately performed well but not extraordinarily, successfully changing his match to a needle on the third attempt rather than the first. McGonagall's approving nod suggested he'd struck the right balance between talent and age-appropriate capability. Charms followed a similar pattern, with Harry showing clear aptitude without revealing the wandless abilities he'd mastered across multiple lifetimes. Professor Flitwick, who had known Harry in a previous incarnation though neither realized it, seemed particularly delighted by Harry's enthusiastic approach to magical theory. "Just like your mother," the tiny professor squeaked after Harry correctly answered a question about intent versus incantation. She had that same intuitive grasp of magical principles. Throughout these early classes, Harry carefully strengthened his connections with his chosen core group. Ron appreciated Harry's willingness to explain concepts without Hermione's occasionally overwhelming detail. Neville blossomed under Harry's patient encouragement during practical exercises. And Hermione, playing her role perfectly, established herself as the brilliant but sometimes socially awkward bookworm, drawing attention away from Harry's own carefully modulated performance. Defense against the dark arts, when Thursday arrived, proved both enlightening and concerning. Quirrell's classroom reeked of garlic, supposedly to ward off a Romanian vampire he'd encountered during his sabbatical. Harry, who counted several vampires including Sebastian among his allies, recognized the garlic as a convenient excuse to mask other odors, likely the decay of Quirrell's body under Voldemort's possession. Welcome to Defense against the Dark Arts, Quirrell stammered, his nervous demeanor seeming pathetic unless one noticed, as Harry did, the occasionally calculating gleam that passed through his eyes between the acts of timidity. Harry kept his occlumency shields firmly in place throughout the lesson, careful to avoid direct eye contact with either Quirrell's face or the back of his turban. Even so, his scar prickled uncomfortably whenever the professor passed near his desk. "He's definitely possessed," Harry confirmed to Hermione as they left class. "But there's something strange about it. The energy signature isn't cohesive, it's like Voldemort's essence is fragmented somehow." "Soul magic," Hermione murmured thoughtfully. "Like what we sensed in Glastonbury." Harry nodded. "We need to monitor him closely, but carefully. Whatever Morrigan's planning, Quirrell is a key component." Their most revealing class came Friday afternoon with double potions. Snape began with roll call, pausing dramatically at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Harry met Snape's gaze calmly, keeping his expression neutral and respectful despite the obvious antagonism. This delicate interaction required careful navigation. Snape's connection to Harry's mother made him potentially valuable, despite his apparent hostility. The potions master launched into a poetic introduction to his subject before suddenly barking questions at Harry Potter. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry recognized the test immediately. These weren't first-year knowledge, but advanced concepts a pampered celebrity supposedly wouldn't know. He also caught the hidden message in flower language, asphodel and wormwood signifying regret over Lily's death. "Interesting. A sleeping potion so powerful it's known as the Draught of Living Death, sir," Harry answered precisely, neither showing off nor withholding knowledge. Snape's eyes narrowed fractionally. "Where would you look if I told you to find a bezoar?" "In the stomach of a goat, sir. It can save you from most poisons." "What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane?" Harry held Snape's gaze steadily. "They're the same plant, sir, also known as aconite." A tense silence followed as Snape seemed to reassess something about Harry. Finally, he sneered, "Correct. Apparently fame isn't everything." His gaze swept the classroom. "Well, why aren't you all copying that down?" As students scrambled for parchment, Snape assigned them to brew a simple potion for curing boils. Harry partnered with Neville, quietly guiding the nervous boy through proper preparation techniques without attracting Snape's attention. When Neville nearly added porcupine quills before taking their cauldron off the fire, Harry gently corrected him. "Not yet, Neville. That would cause a nasty reaction." Thanks," Neville whispered, his hands trembling slightly. "I'm terrible at this." "You're just nervous," Harry assured him. "Your ingredient preparation is actually quite precise, probably from all your herbology experience. Trust yourself more." By lesson's end, their potion was among the better attempts in the class. Snape swept past with barely a glance, which Harry counted as a victory given the professor's evident bias. As they left the dungeon classroom, Harry reflected on what he'd learned. Snape's hostility stemmed from complex feelings about Lily and James, as expected, but there was something else, a protective wariness that suggested the potion's master might not be fully aligned with either Dumbledore or Morrigan/Voldemort. "He hates you," Ron declared as they climbed the stairs toward the Great Hall. Fred and George weren't exaggerating. "I don't think it's that simple," Harry replied thoughtfully. "There's history there. He knew my parents." Ron looked skeptical, but Hermione nodded understanding. Her partially awakened memories from past lives gave her insight into how personal histories could create complex motivations across decades, or centuries. The weekend provided their first opportunity for secure communication with their outside network. While most first-years explored the castle grounds, Harry and Hermione found a secluded spot near the lake to activate the two-way mirror connecting them to Sirius. "There's my favorite revolutionaries," Sirius grinned as his face appeared in the small mirror. "How's Operation Infiltrate Hogwarts going?" Harry gave a concise summary of their first week, focusing on Quirrell's condition and the stone's apparent location. "Dumbledore's practically advertising its presence. It has to be bait." "Sebastian agrees," Sirius replied, his expression growing more serious. His contacts report increased activity around Malfoy Manor. Apparently Lucius has been hosting private gatherings with several ministry officials and former suspected Death Eaters. "Laying groundwork for whatever comes next," Harry mused. "Any word from Narcissa?" "Nothing direct, but Andromeda says she's been asking unusual questions about family magic and ancestral protections. Could be related to whatever Morrigan's planning." They discussed strategy for the coming weeks, with Sirius providing updates on ministry politics and their growing alliance network. Amelia Bones had quietly opened an investigation into several of Lucius Malfoy's recent political maneuvers, while Remus had established contact with a centaur herd in the Forbidden Forest who might serve as additional eyes around Hogwarts boundaries. "One more thing," Sirius added before ending the call. "Sebastian found something in an ancient text about soul fragmentation. He's sending the details through our secure drop point, but the summary is concerning. It might be possible to split a soul into multiple containers as a form of immortality." Harry and Hermione exchanged alarmed glances. "Horcruxes," Harry said grimly. "That would explain the fragmented feeling of Voldemort's essence. He's not fully present in Quirrell because pieces of him exist elsewhere. And possibly why Morrigan sees him as a useful tool rather than a rival," Hermione added. "A fractured soul would be easier to manipulate or absorb." "Tell Sebastian to focus research on detection methods," Harry instructed. "If Voldemort created Horcruxes, finding and neutralizing them becomes a priority alongside monitoring Morrigan." After ending the communication, Harry and Hermione walked slowly back toward the castle, minds racing with these new implications. "If Voldemort split his soul, your scar might be connected to one of those fragments," Hermione suggested quietly. "That would explain your ability to sense his presence." Harry nodded thoughtfully. "It fits the pattern. And it means Dumbledore likely knows or suspects this as well, which explains some of his manipulations around my placement and development." Their discussion paused as they spotted a familiar blonde head approaching from the direction of the Quidditch pitch. Draco Malfoy, flanked as usual by Crabbe and Goyle, strutted toward them with evident purpose. "Perfect," Harry murmured. "Let's see what Junior Malfoy wants." Draco stopped before them, his expression carefully composed. Potter. Getting comfortable in Gryffindor with the blood traitors and mudbloods? The slur ignited instant anger in Harry, but he controlled his reaction, recognizing this as a calculated test. I thought you wanted to get to know me individually, Malfoy, not just insult my friends right off. Draco seemed momentarily wrong-footed by this measured response. Just stating facts, Potter. You could still make better choices. Proper wizarding friends. I'm curious, Harry replied, maintaining casual politeness. What exactly do you think makes a proper wizard? Because from what I've seen, magical talent doesn't follow blood status very reliably. He deliberately glanced at Hermione, whose classroom performance had already established her as the top student in their year despite her Muggle parentage. Draco flushed slightly. It's not just about raw magic, the Slytherin argued. It's about tradition, about understanding our world. Something mudbloods can never fully grasp. An interesting theory, Harry said, his tone suggesting scientific skepticism rather than moral outrage. Though historically, magical innovation has often come from fresh perspectives outside established traditions. The inventors of the Wolfsbane potion and vanishing cabinets were both Muggle-born, for instance. Draco blinked, clearly not expecting this line of counterargument. Harry was deliberately avoiding the moral high ground Draco expected him to claim, instead challenging the practical basis of blood supremacy. My father says, Draco began. Your father has very specific views, Harry acknowledged. And considerable influence. But I prefer examining evidence directly. He extended his hand in a surprising gesture. Tell you what, Malfoy, let's agree to judge each other based on what we do here at Hogwarts, not what our families or houses are supposed to represent. Sound fair? The unexpected olive branch left Draco visibly conflicted. After a moment's hesitation, he briefly shook Harry's hand. Fine, Potter. We'll see who proves themselves. As Draco and his cronies walked away, Hermione gave Harry a questioning look. That was unexpected. I thought we were keeping distance from Malfoy. Sometimes the best way to understand your enemy is to engage them, Harry explained. I want to see how much of Draco is his father's son versus how much might be his own person. If Morrigan is working through Lucius, Draco might be either a tool or a victim. Hermione nodded understanding. Testing boundaries. Exactly. And establishing a relationship that might provide insight into Malfoy Manor activities. Harry gazed thoughtfully after Draco's retreating figure. Besides, in at least one past life, his soul and mine were allies. There's potential there, buried under generations of prejudice. As September progressed into October, Harry carefully balanced multiple objectives. In classes, he maintained his image as a talented but not suspicious first year, gradually allowing his skills to improve as would be expected with practice. He strengthened bonds with his core group, Ron, Hermione, and Neville, while establishing friendly acquaintances throughout other houses. Meanwhile, his covert activities accelerated. Using Sebastian's pocket watch detector and techniques remembered from his life as a magical cartographer in 16th-century Venice, Harry mapped the castle's magical signatures, paying particular attention to the third-floor corridor and potential secret passages that might provide emergency access or escape routes. Regular communications with Sirius and Sebastian kept their outside network informed and coordinated. Research into Horcruxes yielded disturbing insights. The process required murder to split the soul, and traditional destruction methods were limited to incredibly destructive substances like basilisk venom and fiendfire. Most concerning were their observations of Quirrell. The defense professor made regular nighttime visits to the third-floor corridor, apparently testing the stone's protections. Twice, Harry sensed another presence joining these expeditions, a magical signature that matched what he'd felt at Glastonbury, suggesting Morrigan/Malfoy was occasionally visiting the castle, likely through secret passages unknown to most staff. They're coordinating, Harry told Hermione after witnessing one such meeting from beneath his invisibility cloak, a family heirloom Sirius had given him before departure for Hogwarts. Morrigan's guiding Quirrell's attempts to reach the stone. But if Morrigan knows it's a trap, why pursue it? Hermione wondered. Because he can turn Dumbledore's trap to his advantage, Harry explained. If Voldemort attempts to steal the stone and confronts me in the process, it creates the perfect conditions for whatever ritual Morrigan's planning, magical conflict between connected souls, focused around an artifact of immense power. Their discussions of counter-strategy were interrupted in late October when Professor Flitwick announced first-years would begin learning the levitation charm, a milestone that would publicly test Harry's carefully modulated skills. "Remember the wrist movement we've been practicing," Professor Flitwick reminded them, perched atop his pile of books. "Swish and flick, and saying the magic words properly is very important, too." Harry partnered with Seamus Finnegan, while Ron was paired with Hermione. Following their strategic approach, Harry performed the charm correctly on his second attempt rather than immediately, earning enthusiastic praise from Flitwick without standing out too dramatically from his classmates. Ron, struggling with the pronunciation, grew increasingly frustrated as Hermione successfully levitated her feather early in the lesson. "It's no wonder no one can stand her," Harry overheard him telling Seamus after class. "She's a nightmare, honestly." Hermione pushed past them, tears visible despite her attempt to hide them. Though this was partly an act they had anticipated, creating natural-seeming friction that would explain periods when Hermione needed to work separately, Harry saw a real hurt in her eyes. Ron's comment had struck a genuine insecurity. "That wasn't necessary," Harry told Ron quietly. "She was trying to help." Ron looked guilty. "She's just so intense sometimes. Makes everyone else feel stupid." "Being the best at something can be lonely," Harry replied. "Especially when you're different to begin with." The conversation ended there, but Harry made a mental note to address the dynamic more thoroughly later. Their plans required cohesion between core allies, even if public friction sometimes provided useful cover. Hermione didn't appear for their next class, nor for the Halloween feast that evening. Harry overheard Parvati telling Lavender that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom, which aligned with their contingency for creating private time to work on more sensitive research. The feast was interrupted when Professor Quirrell burst through the doors, terror on his face. "Troll, in the dungeons, thought you ought to know." He collapsed in a theatrical faint that Harry immediately recognized as performative. As panic erupted, Dumbledore ordered prefects to lead students back to dormitories. Harry, however, grabbed Ron's arm as they joined the Gryffindors streaming out of the hall. "Hermione doesn't know about the troll," he said urgently. "We need to warn her." Ron hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Right. Let's go." They slipped away from the group, heading toward the girls' bathroom. Harry's mind raced with calculations. This troll incident felt too convenient, especially with Quirrell's obvious play-acting. Was this a diversion to access the stone? Or something more targeted? His question was answered when they rounded a corner and spotted a massive mountain troll lumbering into the very bathroom where Hermione was reportedly hiding. "It's going right for her," Ron gasped. "How did it get up from the dungeons so fast?" "Because it was never in the dungeons," Harry replied grimly. "Come on." They rushed into the bathroom as a terrified scream echoed off the tiled walls. Hermione was shrinking back against the opposite wall, looking as though she was about to faint as the troll advanced on her, knocking sinks off walls as it swung its massive club. "Distract it!" Harry shouted to Ron, grabbing a tap and throwing it against the wall. The troll stopped, blinking stupidly, then turned its attention toward Harry. This gave Ron the opportunity to yell insults from another direction, confusing the creature further. Harry assessed the situation rapidly. While he possessed knowledge of combat magic from multiple lifetimes, using such obviously advanced spells would raise too many questions. He needed an approach that would seem plausibly within a first-year's capabilities. "Ron!" "The levitation charm," he called, nodding toward the Trolls Club. Understanding dawned on Ron's face. With newfound determination, he pointed his wand at the massive wooden club and performed the charm they'd just learned that day, with perfect pronunciation this time. "Wingardium Leviosa." The club flew suddenly out of the troll's hand, rising high into the air before dropping with a sickening crack onto its owner's head. The troll swayed, then fell flat with a thud that made the whole room tremble. Hermione, shaking visibly, emerged from beneath a damaged sink. "Is it dead?" "Just knocked out, I think," Harry replied, keeping his tone calm despite recognizing several troubling details about the troll, specifically, containment runes partially hidden beneath its dirty leather garments. This was no random mountain troll that had wandered in, it had been deliberately captured, marked, and released. Moments later, Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell burst into the bathroom. McGonagall's face shifted from shock to fury as she surveyed the scene. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded, cold rage in her voice. "You're lucky you weren't killed." Before Harry could answer, Hermione spoke up in a small voice. "Please, Professor, they were looking for me. I went looking for the troll because I've read about them and thought I could handle it. If Harry and Ron hadn't found me, I'd probably be dead." Harry kept his expression neutral despite his surprise. This deviation from their planned explanation suggested Hermione had noticed the same suspicious details about the troll and was creating distance between them and the incident. McGonagall's reaction confirmed this was wise. "Miss Granger, how could you think of tackling a mountain troll on your own? 5 points from Gryffindor." She turned to Harry and Ron. "As for you two gentlemen, well, not many first years could take on a full-grown mountain troll and live to tell the tale. 5 points, to each of you for sheer dumb luck." As they left the destroyed bathroom, Harry noticed Snape's robes were torn and bloody near his right leg, an injury clearly sustained elsewhere during the troll incident. The potions master caught Harry looking and quickly covered the wound, his expression darkening. More significantly, Harry detected magical residue around Quirrell that matched the containment runes on the troll, confirmation of the defense professor's involvement in its release. Once safely back in the Gryffindor common room and away from curious classmates, the three friends huddled in a quiet corner. "That troll was sent deliberately," Harry murmured. "It had control runes carved into its skin." Ron's eyes widened. "You mean someone guided it to that specific bathroom? But how would they know Hermione was there?" "They've been watching us," Hermione said quietly. "My habits, specifically. I've used that bathroom several times when I needed privacy for our research." Harry nodded grimly. Quirrell had the troll's magical signature all over him. And Snape was injured, likely from heading to the third-floor corridor to protect the stone while everyone was distracted. "So Quirrell used the troll as a distraction to try accessing the stone," Ron summarized, but also targeted Hermione specifically. His face paled. That's really serious, mate." "It means they know she's important," Harry confirmed. "We'll need to be more careful about how and where we communicate." This incident marked a significant escalation. Until now, Harry had sensed observation but not direct threat to his allies. The targeted attack on Hermione suggested Morrigan, working through Quirrell and possibly others, had identified her as more than just Harry's friend. Perhaps her partially awakened past life memories had created a magical signature recognizable to the ancient enemy. In the weeks that followed, Harry implemented enhanced security protocols. Sebastian provided additional protective amulets, delivered discreetly by owl post and packages appearing to contain ordinary sweets from Sirius. Hermione began carrying a small enchanted mirror that would alert Harry if she encountered danger. Their secure communication locations rotated regularly, never using the same spot twice in succession. November brought the start of the Quidditch season, presenting Harry with a strategic decision. When Madame Hooch announced flying lessons, he deliberately performed well enough to be noticed but not so extraordinarily as to suggest prior experience. This calculated demonstration led, as anticipated, to McGonagall recommending him as Seeker after he caught Neville's Remembrall during an incident with Malfoy. "Youngest house player in a century," Ron said admiringly as they left their first team practice. "That's amazing, Harry." The Quidditch position served multiple purposes in Harry's strategy. It provided a public, school-sanctioned activity that explained his occasional absences for training, actually research and secure communications. It established his connection to his father's legacy, reinforcing his public image as James and Lily's son rather than an ancient soul with recovered memories. Most importantly, it gave him legitimate access to areas of the castle and grounds that would otherwise attract suspicion. During his first official match against Slytherin, however, an unexpected attack tested Harry's ability to maintain his cover. Midway through the game, his broom began trying to buck him off, a clear jinx requiring sustained eye contact and significant magical power. Hermione, watching through binoculars, quickly identified Quirrell muttering an incantation while staring unblinkingly at Harry's broom. However, she also spotted Snape nearby, similarly maintaining eye contact while murmuring what appeared to be a counter-curse. Making a split-second decision, Hermione circled around to Quirrell's position and, accidentally, knocked him over while rushing past, breaking his concentration. The broom stabilized immediately, allowing Harry to catch the snitch in a spectacular dive that thrilled the crowd while privately confirming Quirrell's hostile intent. The post-match discussion with Hagrid yielded unexpected intelligence when the groundskeeper accidentally revealed the three-headed dog guarding the stone was named Fluffy and belonged to him. More significantly, he let slip that the stone's protection involved multiple professors and that Nicholas Flamel is involved. I shouldn't ha' told ya that. This confirmed their intelligence about the stone's origin and provided a framework for understanding the multilayered defenses they would need to bypass or neutralize when the time came for direct intervention. December brought heavy snow to Hogwarts and a crucial development in their investigation of Voldemort's fragmented soul. While most students prepared to return home for Christmas holidays, Harry arranged to stay at the castle, citing a desire to experience a Hogwarts Christmas. Ron, whose parents were visiting Charlie in Romania, stayed as well, providing both companionship and cover for Harry's more covert activities. On Christmas morning, among his modest pile of presents, Harry discovered one with no card, just a note reading, "Your father left this in my possession before he died. It is time it was returned to you. Use it well." The invisibility cloak, a Potter family heirloom Harry had learned about from Sirius, represented not just a useful tool but a significant chess move by Dumbledore. The headmaster was clearly encouraging Harry's nighttime explorations, further confirming the theory that the stone's placement was an elaborate test or trap. "Perfect timing," Harry murmured, examining the fluid, silvery fabric. Though he already possessed a disillusionment charm from his past lives, the cloak provided a school-appropriate explanation for any nighttime discoveries. That very night, Harry used the cloak to access the restricted section, ostensibly searching for information on Nicholas Flamel but actually investigating a different matter entirely, soul magic and potential connections between his scar and Voldemort's fragmented essence. His research was interrupted when he nearly encountered Filch and Snape, forcing him to duck into an unused classroom containing a magnificent mirror with an inscription, "Eris stra eru oit ube kafru oit on wosi." "I show not your face but your heart's desire," Harry translated easily, recognizing the mirror from both magical lore and a previous encounter in his life as a cursebreaker in ancient Persia. Approaching cautiously, Harry observed his reflection, but not alone. Around him stood hundreds of figures from his past lives, souls he had known across millennia, all unified in purpose. In the foreground stood his parents, James and Lily Potter, alongside friends and allies from his current life. The message was clear: his heart's desire wasn't just to defeat Morrigan, but to unify his fragmented experiences across lifetimes, to bring wholeness to his ancient journey. "A powerful artifact," came Dumbledore's voice from behind him. "And a dangerous one." Harry turned, unsurprised by the headmaster's appearance. This encounter had been statistically likely given the mirror's placement and the invisibility cloak's gift. "Good evening, Professor," Harry greeted politely. "I'm sorry for being out of bed." "Curiosity is not a sin, Harry," Dumbledore replied, approaching to stand beside him. "But the mirror of Erist gives neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen. Dreams instead of living," Harry agreed thoughtfully. "I can see how that would be dangerous." Dumbledore studied him with increased interest. What is it that you see, Harry? It was a testing question, one that required careful navigation. Too innocent an answer would seem disingenuous, too revealing might expose his true nature. My parents, Harry said truthfully but incompletely. And, people who seem connected to them somehow. A community I belong to. Understandable, Dumbledore nodded, though his eyes suggested he sensed there was more. The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry. I ask you not to go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. As Harry turned to leave, Dumbledore added casually, by the way, an invisibility cloak is a remarkable gift. Use it well. The implied permission was clear. Dumbledore was effectively sanctioning Harry's nighttime explorations, further confirming they were part of whatever test the headmaster had designed around the stone. The mirror's relocation proved significant when Harry later deduced its new location, the final chamber in the stone's protection sequence. Clearly, Dumbledore had incorporated it as the ultimate safeguard, likely enchanted to release the stone only to someone who wanted to find the stone but not use it. When classes resumed after the holidays, Harry intensified monitoring of Quirrell's activities while continuing to build alliances among students and staff. In herbology, he regularly partnered with Hufflepuffs, establishing connections with Susan Bones, Amelia's niece, and Justin Finch-Fletchley. During library sessions, he cultivated acquaintances with Ravenclaws including Terry Boot and Padma Patil. These cross-house connections served multiple purposes, gathering diverse intelligence, creating potential support networks, and establishing Harry's reputation as someone who valued unity over house rivalries. This last element was particularly important given historical patterns where Morrigan had exploited divisions within magical communities. A breakthrough came in late January when Neville hobbled into the common room with leg-locked legs, courtesy of Draco Malfoy. After helping reverse the jinx, Harry gave Neville a chocolate frog and some unexpected encouragement. You're worth 12 of Malfoy, Neville. The Sorting Hat put you in Gryffindor for a reason. And it's never wrong. The simple affirmation had a profound effect on the timid boy, whose confidence had been systematically undermined by years of family pressure and perceived inadequacy. Harry recognized the moment as a turning point in awakening the warrior spirit he knew existed within Neville's soul. More surprisingly, Neville handed back the chocolate frog card featuring Dumbledore, which contained a reference to the headmaster's work on alchemy with Nicholas Flamel, providing a legitimate discovery of information Harry had carefully avoided revealing he already possessed. I can't believe I forgot Flamel was an alchemist. Hermione exclaimed with convincing excitement, rushing to retrieve a massive book from her dormitory. The Philosopher's Stone. That's what Fluffy's guarding. This discovery allowed them to openly discuss the stone's significance and Voldemort's potential interest in its life-extending properties, establishing a foundation for eventual intervention that would seem natural rather than suspiciously premeditated. As winter yielded to early spring, events accelerated toward what Harry increasingly sensed would be a confrontation before term's end. Quirrell appeared progressively more haggard, his body deteriorating under Voldemort's possession. Twice more, Harry detected Malfoy/Morrigan's magical signature within the castle, coinciding with full moon phases that suggested ritual timing. Their network beyond Hogwarts reported complementary developments. Sebastian's contacts observed increased gathering of dark artifacts at Malfoy Manor. Sirius, now successfully positioned on the school's board of governors, noted Lucius pushing for Dumbledore's removal through political maneuvering. Most alarmingly, Remus reported the Centaurs speaking of Mars growing brighter, a celestial omen of approaching conflict. In March, a chance encounter in the library provided unexpected insight when Harry overheard Hagrid researching dragons. Following this lead, he arranged for his core group to visit the groundskeeper's hut, where they discovered a dragon egg heating in the fireplace. "Hagrid, where did you get it?" Harry asked carefully. "Those are restricted." "Won it," Hagrid said proudly. "Last night. I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game o' cards with a stranger." The convenient timing and unusual prize immediately raised Harry's suspicions. This stranger, was he interested in Fluffy by any chance? Hagrid's expression confirmed it before he spoke. Well, yeah, he asked about the sorta creatures I look after, so I told him, after Fluffy, a dragon would be easy. And did he seem interested in Fluffy? Harry pressed, keeping his tone casual. Well, yeah, how many three-headed dogs do ya meet? So I told him, the trick with any beast is to know how to calm him. Take Fluffy, play him a bit music and he falls straight asleep. Hagrid immediately looked horrified at what he'd revealed, but the damage was done. The stranger had clearly been Quirrell gathering intelligence on the stone's protections, and now they knew how to get past the first obstacle. The dragon situation eventually required intervention when the creature, named Norbert by Hagrid, grew too large to conceal. Harry arranged for Charlie Weasley's friends to collect it from the astronomy tower, but the mission went awry when Malfoy discovered their plan and reported them to McGonagall. The resulting detention in the Forbidden Forest proved unexpectedly significant. Paired with Malfoy and accompanied by Hagrid's dog Fong, Harry followed a trail of unicorn blood deep into the forest. The scene they discovered was horrifying, a cloaked figure drinking blood from a slain unicorn, its pure silvery substance dripping from shadowy lips. When the figure looked up and moved toward them, pain like Harry had never experienced seared across his scar. Malfoy fled screaming, but Harry remained frozen, recognizing both Voldemort's essence and something deeper, Morrigan's ancient malevolence layered beneath it, observing through the possessed form. The moment was interrupted by a centaur named Firenze, who drove the figure away before explaining the significance of unicorn blood. Only one who has nothing to lose, and everything to gain, would commit such a crime, the centaur told Harry. The blood of a unicorn will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips. Harry understood immediately. Voldemort was using unicorn blood to sustain Quirrell's deteriorating body until they could secure the stone. But more disturbing was the implication that Morrigan was allowing this desecration despite its magical consequences. Whatever ritual the ancient enemy planned must be powerful enough to overcome even the curse of slain innocence. As exam season approached, bringing with it warmer weather and increased pressure, Harry sensed the approaching culmination of both Dumbledore's test and Morrigan's scheme. The pieces were moving into their final positions, Quirrell growing desperate as his host body failed, Dumbledore frequently absent from the castle on ministry business, and magical energies around the third-floor corridor intensifying as the protections responded to repeated probing. After completing their final exam, Harry and his friend sat beneath a tree near the lake, outwardly relaxing but inwardly alert as Harry shared his growing certainty. "It's going to happen soon," he said quietly. "Quirrell's running out of time, the unicorn blood isn't working well enough anymore. And with Dumbledore called away to London today." Ron looked alarmed. "You think Quirrell's going after the stone tonight?" "It makes sense," Hermione agreed. "The timing aligns with the full moon too, magically significant for major workings." Harry nodded. "We need to move first. If Quirrell gets the stone to Voldemort, and if Morrigan channels that power for whatever ritual he's planning. We go tonight then," Neville said with surprising firmness. The past months had transformed him considerably, Harry's careful mentorship awakening aspects of his warrior soul. "All of us." Harry had intended to include only Hermione in the actual confrontation, keeping Ron and Neville as lookouts, but Neville's resolute expression gave him pause. Perhaps the pattern truly was changing this cycle. Perhaps facing Morrigan with allies rather than alone would make the critical difference. "All of us," Harry agreed. "But we need to be prepared. This isn't just about stopping a thief, there's something much darker happening." That evening, after the common room emptied, Harry briefed his team on what to expect: the three-headed dog, Devil's Snare, flying keys, a giant chess set, a troll, logic puzzles, and likely the Mirror of Erist as the final guardian. Each obstacle corresponded to a professor's specialty, suggesting Dumbledore had designed the sequence as a test requiring varied skills and teamwork. Their plan was straightforward but adaptable. Using Harry's invisibility cloak and Hermione's recently perfected disillusionment charm for the others, they would navigate the protections together as far as possible. If confrontation with Quirrell/Voldemort became necessary, Harry would handle it directly while the others secured escape routes and summoned help through the emergency communication mirror linked to Sirius. What they couldn't plan for was Morrigan's potential involvement. If the ancient entity chose direct intervention rather than working through proxies, they would need to implement emergency protocols designed over months with Sebastian and Lorelei, magical containment techniques derived from multiple cultural traditions across Harry's remembered lifetimes. As they prepared to leave Gryffindor Tower, an unexpected obstacle appeared: Neville, standing guard at the portrait hole. "I won't let you go," he declared, raising his wand. "You'll be expelled, and Gryffindor will lose even more points." Harry recognized this wasn't their Neville, but rather Trevor's inadvertent replacement when they'd encountered the other boy in the hallway earlier. A simple sleep charm resolved the situation, though Harry felt a twinge of regret at the deception. Their journey through the protections proceeded much as anticipated. Fluffy succumbed to a charmed flute Harry played, remembering techniques from his life as a traveling minstrel in medieval France. The Devil's Snare yielded to Hermione's conjured bluebell flames, while the flying keys required Harry's seeker skills to capture. The giant chess game proved Ron's moment to shine, his strategic mind navigating them through the challenge despite requiring him to sacrifice himself in a move that left him unconscious but not seriously injured. Harry and Hermione left him with a recovery potion from their prepared supplies, promising to return soon. After bypassing an already unconscious troll, evidently Quirrell's contribution, and solving Snape's logic puzzle with the smallest bottle containing the potion to proceed through black flames, they faced a difficult decision. "There's only enough for one of us," Hermione noted, examining the tiny bottle. Harry nodded. "You stay here. Get Ron, get back past Fluffy, and use the mirror to contact Sirius. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, implement Containment Protocol 3. Hermione grabbed him in a tight hug. "Be careful, Harry. This isn't like our practice scenarios. If Morrigan manifests directly." "I remember what to do," Harry assured her, memories from dozens of past confrontations with the ancient enemy rising to the surface. Soul shielding first, then isolation wards, then the binding sequence. After Hermione reluctantly retreated, Harry drank the potion and stepped through the black flames, prepared for confrontation with Quirrell/Voldemort but uncertain whether Morrigan would choose this moment for direct intervention. The final chamber contained exactly what he expected: Quirrell standing before the mirror of Eriste, muttering to himself. The defense professor turned at Harry's entrance, his nervous stammer conspicuously absent. "Potter. I wondered if I'd be seeing you here." "Professor," Harry acknowledged calmly. "Or should I say, professors. Since you're not alone in there." Quirrell's face twisted into a cruel smile entirely unlike his classroom persona. "Perceptive child. My master sees you clearly too, sees what others have missed." "Voldemort," Harry stated flatly. "Using you to get the stone." "The boy who lived," Quirrell mocked. "Such fame for doing nothing but surviving. My master sees beyond the scar, though. Sees what you truly are." Before Harry could respond, Quirrell snapped his fingers, conjuring ropes that bound Harry tightly. "Now wait quietly, Potter. I need to examine this interesting mirror." As Quirrell turned back to the mirror of Eriste, complaining about seeing himself presenting the stone to his master, Harry focused on wandlessly loosening his bonds, a simple trick from his life as an escape artist in 19th-century America. "Use the boy," came a high, cold voice from somewhere within Quirrell. "Bring him here." Freed from his restraints but pretending to remain bound, Harry allowed Quirrell to position him before the mirror. As expected, his reflection showed himself finding the stone, but with a crucial difference from Dumbledore's likely intention. Rather than simply pocketing the stone, Mirror Harry examined it critically, then deliberately cracked it before placing the damaged artifact in his pocket. The Real Harry felt a sudden weight in his pocket. The stone had appeared, but following his reflection's example, it had manifested with a hairline fracture running through it. A subtle magical sabotage that might disrupt whatever ritual Morrigan had planned. "Well?" demanded Quirrell impatiently. "What do you see?" "I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore," Harry lied easily. "I've won the House Cup." "He lies," hissed the voice. "Let me speak to him, face to face." "Master, you are not strong enough." "I have strength enough, for this." Harry watched impassively as Quirrell unwrapped his turban, revealing the terrible face embedded in the back of his head, flat and snake-like, with glaring red eyes and slit nostrils. Voldemort's parasitic form was even more grotesque than intelligence had suggested, clearly consuming Quirrell's life force to maintain its semi-corporal state. "Harry Potter," the face whispered. "See what I have become. Mere shadow and vapor, forced to share another's body. But there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds." "Not much of an existence," Harry observed, carefully monitoring both Voldemort's energy signature and the ambient magic of the chamber for any sign of Morrigan's presence. "Parasitic. Dependent. Temporary," Voldemort corrected. "Once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, why don't you give me that stone in your pocket?" So he could sense it, despite the damage. Harry took a step back. "I don't think so. Immortality isn't meant for those who fear death so desperately." Voldemort's face contorted with rage. "Don't be a fool, boy. Better to save your own life and join me, or meet the same end as your parents. They died begging for mercy." "Liar," Harry responded calmly. "My mother's sacrifice is why you couldn't touch me. Her love created protection you can't understand." "There is no good and evil," Voldemort hissed. "There is only power, and those too weak to seek it. Your mother needn't have died, she was trying to protect you. Give me the stone, unless you want her to have died in vain. Seize him." Voldemort suddenly screamed when Harry remained unmoved. Quirrell lunged forward, grabbing Harry's wrist. Immediately, excruciating pain seared through Harry's scar, but Quirrell's pain was clearly worse. The professor released Harry with a howl, staring at his blistering fingers. "Seize him! Seize him!" Voldemort shrieked again. Quirrell dove at Harry, knocking him to the ground with hands around his throat. Though the touch clearly burned him, Quirrell maintained his grip through sheer desperation. Harry, fighting for breath, reached up to press his palms against Quirrell's face, remembering his mother's protective magic and deliberately channeling it through his own intent. The effect was immediate and devastating. Quirrell screamed in agony as his skin blistered and cracked wherever Harry touched. The protection worked through Voldemort's possessed form like acid through paper. Then something unexpected happened. As Quirrell collapsed and Harry struggled to maintain consciousness, a third magical signature flared in the chamber, the distinctive ancient power he recognized from countless past confrontations. Morrigan had arrived. A swirling darkness materialized near the chamber entrance, coalescing into the aristocratic form of Lucius Malfoy, but his eyes glowed with an otherworldly green light that belonged to something far older than the pure-blood wizard. "The Remembered One," Morrigan spoke through Malfoy's lips, his voice layered with inhuman resonance. "How convenient that you've weakened yourself fighting my temporary ally." Harry staggered to his feet, fighting vertigo as he implemented the protective techniques practiced over months. A wandless shield charm first, then more specialized defenses remembered from his life as a temple guardian in ancient India. "Morrigan," he acknowledged, voice steady despite his exhaustion. "Still hiding in other people's bodies after all these centuries?" The entity laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "A temporary inconvenience. Soon I'll have what I've sought since Atlantis fell, true corporeal immortality. Your confrontation with Voldemort has generated precisely the magical resonance I needed." Harry became aware of complex spellwork activating throughout the chamber, runic patterns hidden within the stonework glowing with malevolent purpose. This had been Morrigan's plan all along, not merely to acquire the stone, but to harness the magical conflict between Harry and Voldemort as components in a larger ritual. The binding web, Harry realized aloud. Glastonbury was just preparation for this. Always perceptive, old friend, Morgan/Malfoy smiled coldly. Across how many lifetimes have we played this game? But this cycle ends differently. This time, I complete what began when Atlantis fell. The entity extended Malfoy's hand, and Harry felt the damaged Philosopher's Stone literally tear through his pocket, flying across the chamber to hover before Morgan. Flawed, the ancient enemy observed, examining the crack Harry had deliberately manifested. But sufficient. The stone is merely a catalyst, the real power comes from you, from Voldemort's essence, from the magical confluence Dumbledore so helpfully arranged in his arrogance. As Morgan began an incantation in pre-Atlantean language, Harry frantically assessed his options. Direct magical combat in his weakened state would fail. Physical escape was blocked by the chamber's magic. That left only the most dangerous option, the soul-binding technique he'd developed over multiple lifetimes specifically to counter Morgan's immortality ritual. Drawing on reserves of magical energy stored within an amulet Sebastian had provided, Harry began a counter-incantation, his voice strengthening as ancient words of power flowed from memories older than recorded history. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavy with competing magical forces. Morgan's ritual pulled at the ambient energy, creating a vortex of power centered on the cracked stone. Harry's counter-ritual established barriers between dimensions, preventing the entity from drawing additional power from the sources it had cultivated across centuries. "You cannot stop this," Morgan snarled, Malfoy's aristocratic features contorting with inhuman rage. "The celestial alignment is perfect. The sacrifices are in place. The ancient pact will be fulfilled." Harry continued his incantation without interruption, remembering techniques from his life as a Tibetan mystic for maintaining focus through physical pain and magical interference. Gradually, he sensed the tide turning, the crack in the stone was disrupting Morgan's carefully calibrated ritual, creating instability in the magical matrices. With a howl of frustration, Morgan/Malfoy raised both hands, sending a blast of raw magical force toward Harry. Unable to dodge in his weakened state, Harry took the full impact, slamming against the chamber wall with bone-crushing force. "I had hoped to complete the ritual with minimal disruption," Morgan said coldly, approaching Harry's crumpled form. "But I can adapt. Your blood alone will suffice, with the stone as focus." As the entity reached for him, Harry activated his final contingency, a soul shield technique remembered from his earliest incarnation as Atlantes, specifically designed to repel Morgan's essence regardless of its physical host. The shield flared golden as Morgan touched him, sending the entity reeling backward with a shriek of pain. Simultaneously, a disturbance rippled through the chamber as distant voices approached. Hermione had successfully summoned help. "This isn't finished," Morgan hissed, Malfoy's form beginning to shimmer with transportation magic. "The cycle continues, remembered one. Until next we meet." With a sound like tearing fabric, Morgan/Malfoy vanished from the chamber just as Dumbledore burst through the entrance, his face uncharacteristically showing alarm rather than serene control. "Harry," the headmaster exclaimed, rushing to where he lay against the wall. "What happened here?" Before Harry could answer, the accumulated magical backlash from the interrupted rituals, combined with his injuries and exhaustion, pulled him into darkness. His last conscious thought was that, once again, the confrontation with Morgan had ended in stalemate rather than resolution, but unlike previous cycles, he remained aware of the eternal game. This time, perhaps, the advantage was his. Harry awoke in the hospital wing, sunlight streaming through high windows and a table beside his bed piled high with sweets and cards. His body ached from magical exhaustion, but his mind remained clear, memories of the confrontation with both Voldemort and Morgan intact. "Ah, you're awake," came Dumbledore's voice from beside him. Harry turned to find the headmaster watching him with that familiar mixture of grandfatherly concern and analytical assessment. "Sir," Harry acknowledged, carefully marshalling his thoughts. This conversation would require delicate navigation, revealing enough to maintain his cover as an exceptional but still fundamentally normal 11-year-old, while concealing his true nature and knowledge of Morgan. "You've had quite the adventure," Dumbledore observed mildly. Your friends Miss Granger and Mr. Weasley will be most relieved you've recovered. They've been quite concerned these past 3 days. 3 days? Harry asked, genuinely surprised. The magical backlash had been more severe than he'd calculated. Dumbledore nodded. Quite a testament to the events that transpired in that chamber. Perhaps you might enlighten me as to what occurred after Professor Quirrell revealed his unusual condition. Harry provided a carefully edited account, truthful regarding Quirrell/Voldemort and the stone, but omitting Morrigan's appearance and the competing rituals. He described the protective magic from his mother activating when Quirrell touched him, and his subsequent loss of consciousness. I see, Dumbledore said when he finished. A remarkable display of ancient magic, your mother's love continuing to protect you through her sacrifice. The headmaster's eyes twinkled. Love, Harry, is perhaps the most powerful and least understood of all magical forces. Voldemort, having never experienced it himself, cannot comprehend its strength. That is why he could not touch you. Harry nodded, recognizing the oversimplification as both technically accurate and conveniently incomplete. Lily's sacrifice had indeed created protection, but the full metaphysical mechanics were considerably more complex than Dumbledore suggested. Their conversation continued with Dumbledore explaining what had happened to the stone, destroyed, by mutual agreement with Nicholas Flamel, and why Harry had been able to retrieve it from the mirror. Only one who wanted to find it, not use it, could obtain it. Finally, Harry asked the question expected of his cover identity, Sir, there are some things I'd still like to know, if you can tell me, things I want to know the truth about. The truth, Dumbledore sighed. It is a beautiful and terrible thing, and should therefore be treated with great caution. However, I shall answer your questions unless I have a very good reason not to. In which case, I beg you'll forgive me. I shall not, of course, lie. Harry proceeded with questions a normal 11-year-old would ask: why Voldemort had targeted him as a baby, why Quirrell couldn't touch him, why Snape seemed to hate him yet protected him. Dumbledore's answers were predictably partial, acknowledging the prophecy's existence without revealing its contents, confirming Lily's protective sacrifice, explaining Snape's complex feelings toward James. What interested Harry most, however, was what Dumbledore didn't say. The headmaster made no mention of Horcruxes despite surely suspecting their existence, offered no insight into Harry's unusual connection with Voldemort through his scar, and carefully avoided any reference to unusual magical resonances in the chamber that would have indicated Morrigan's presence. Either Dumbledore hadn't detected Morrigan's involvement, which seemed unlikely given the headmaster's magical sensitivity, or he was withholding that information for reasons of his own. Both possibilities required careful consideration. After Dumbledore departed, promising Harry could attend the end-of-year feast the following evening, Madame Pomfrey allowed his friends a brief visit. Hermione immediately hugged him with tearful relief while Ron awkwardly patted his shoulder. We were so worried, Hermione whispered. When the mirror alerted Sirius and we couldn't get back to you. What happened after I left? Harry asked quietly, mindful of Madame Pomfrey hovering nearby. Hermione glanced around before replying in an undertone. We implemented Containment Protocol 3. Sebastian and 2 others arrived within minutes through the passage we'd secured. They were heading toward you when Dumbledore appeared from nowhere, practically flying past us toward the chamber. By the time we got Ron to the hospital wing and doubled back, they were bringing you out on a stretcher, she continued. You looked terrible. Magical exhaustion, physical trauma. Sebastian wanted to take you to their healers, but Dumbledore insisted you remain at Hogwarts. Probably for the best, Harry murmured. Less questions that way. But what happened with you-know-who? Ron asked eagerly. Did you get the stone? Harry gave them the same edited version he provided Dumbledore, but with a significant look at Hermione that conveyed there was more to discuss when secure. She nodded understanding, subtly touching the communication amulet hidden beneath her robes. That evening, after Ron had departed and Madame Pomfrey retired to her office, Hermione cast several privacy charms around Harry's bed before activating a more secure communication device, a small crystal embedded in her prefect badge that connected directly to Sirius and Sebastian. He's awake, she reported quietly. And coherent. Thank Merlin, came Sirius's relieved voice. The old man wouldn't let us near you, pup. Said your magical recovery was delicate and required Hogwarts-specific ambient magic. Not entirely wrong, Harry acknowledged. But there's more happening than he's admitting. He provided a complete account of Morrigan's appearance and the competing rituals, the damaged stone serving as both catalyst and disruption, and the entity's ominous parting words about the continuing cycle. This confirms our worst fears, Sebastian's voice responded gravely. Morrigan was using Voldemort and Dumbledore as unwitting participants in a larger working. The celestial timing, the location at a magical nexus like Hogwarts, the conflict between connected souls, all perfect components for ancient Atlantean magic. But it failed, Harry noted. The damaged stone disrupted the ritual's precision. And my soul shield prevented direct contact when he attempted to use my blood as an alternative. A temporary setback for him, Sirius warned. If he's been planning this for centuries, he'll adapt. Which means we need to accelerate our counterplans, Harry agreed. Starting with locating Voldemort's Horcruxes. If Morrigan intends to use Voldemort's fragmented soul as a component in his immortality ritual, removing those soul anchors becomes even more urgent. They discussed strategy for the summer months. Harry would ostensibly return to Privet Drive briefly to maintain the blood wards, then join Sirius at a more secure location where Sebastian and Lorelei could assist with specialized magical training. Meanwhile, Hermione would research Horcrux detection methods, and their network would intensify monitoring of Malfoy Manor. Be careful during the feast tomorrow, Sebastian cautioned as they concluded. Morrigan may have withdrawn temporarily, but his influence remains. Watch for unusual behavior from Malfoy's son or other potential proxies. The following evening, Harry joined the end-of-year feast in the Great Hall, which had been decked in Slytherin green and silver to celebrate their winning the House Cup. The hall fell silent as he entered, then erupted in whispers as students craned to get a look at him. Harry took his place between Ron and Hermione at the Gryffindor table, pointedly ignoring the stares while carefully monitoring magical signatures throughout the hall. He detected no trace of Morrigan's distinctive energy, though Draco Malfoy's aura showed unusual disturbances, likely residual effects from his father's recent possession rather than direct influence. When Dumbledore arrived, the headmaster delivered his usual end-of-term remarks before announcing last-minute house points that dramatically reversed the standings. Gryffindor's victory celebration provided perfect cover for Harry to observe reactions throughout the hall, particularly among the staff. Snape's tightly controlled fury revealed complex layers beneath his apparent resentment. McGonagall's satisfied smile suggested genuine pleasure in her house's success, but also relief that Harry had survived his test intact. Most intriguingly, Dumbledore's benevolent expression occasionally slipped when he thought no one was watching, revealing deep concern as his gaze tracked Harry throughout the feast. The headmaster clearly suspected something beyond Voldemort had occurred in that chamber, something that didn't align with his carefully orchestrated plans for the boy who lived. As the feast concluded and students prepared for departure the next day, Harry found himself approached by an unlikely visitor, Draco Malfoy, momentarily separated from his usual Slytherin entourage. "Potter," the blonde boy acknowledged stiffly. "Heard you had quite the adventure." "Something like that," Harry replied neutrally, studying Draco carefully for any sign of his father's influence. "My father." Draco began, then hesitated uncharacteristically. "He's been different lately. Since around the time you disappeared into the third-floor corridor." Harry maintained a carefully innocent expression. "Different how?" "Distant. Cold. Sometimes he looks at me like." Draco glanced around nervously before continuing, his usual arrogance temporarily absent. "Like he doesn't recognize me. Or like I'm just another object he owns." The vulnerability in this admission startled Harry. Perhaps Narcissa's concerns about her son were more justified than they'd realized. Morrigan's increasing dominance over Lucius might be affecting the Malfoy family dynamics in ways that even Draco could perceive. "Families are complicated," Harry offered cautiously. "Especially when there's pressure from outside. Draco studied him suspiciously. "Why are you being decent about this? We're not friends." "We're not enemies either," Harry countered. "Not really. Just kids from different houses with different backgrounds." Something shifted in Draco's expression, a barely perceptible relaxation of his perpetual sneer. "Well, don't expect me to join your fan club next year, Potter. House pride and all that." "Wouldn't dream of it, Malfoy," Harry replied with a slight smile. As Draco rejoined his Slytherin classmates, Harry filed this interaction away as potentially significant. If Morrigan's possession was affecting Lucius's relationship with his son, it might eventually create an opening, a potential ally in an unexpected quarter. The journey home aboard the Hogwarts Express provided a final opportunity to solidify connections before summer separation. Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Neville shared a compartment, discussing summer plans with carefully measured openness. As they approached King's Cross, Harry prepared himself for the complex transitions ahead, the brief return to Privet Drive, the accelerated training with Sebastian and Lorelei, the hunt for Horcruxes that would likely begin before summer's end. The confrontation in the Stone's chamber had confirmed both the nature of the threat and the urgency of their response. Morrigan was moving toward his ultimate goal after centuries of preparation. Voldemort's fragmented soul provided components the ancient entity had never before accessed. The cycle of conflict that had repeated across Harry's many lifetimes was approaching a critical juncture, one where the pattern might finally be broken, for better or worse. Yet as Harry bid farewell to his friends on platform 9 3/4, watching Hermione rejoin her parents and Ron greet his family, he felt something he hadn't experienced in many past confrontations with his ancient enemy, hope. Unlike previous cycles where he'd faced Morrigan alone, often unaware of their eternal conflict until too late, this time he had remembered from the beginning. This time, he had allies who understood the true stakes. This time, perhaps, the outcome might finally change. "Ready to go, pup?" Sirius asked, appearing beside him with a supportive hand on his shoulder. Harry nodded, his green eyes reflecting determination tempered by centuries of experience. "Ready. We have a lot to do this summer." As they left the station, Harry's thoughts turned to Luna Lovegood, whose soul he'd known across 7 lifetimes and who would arrive at Hogwarts the following year. Her unique perspective and natural ability to perceive magical realities others missed would provide another crucial advantage in the continuing conflict. The ancient cycle was accelerating toward its climax, but this time, Harry Potter, the remembered one, faced it with full awareness of what had come before and what might yet be. This time, perhaps, Morrigan's millennia-long quest for corrupted immortality would finally be thwarted, and the pattern that had repeated since Atlantis fell would reach its long-delayed conclusion. Whatever came next, Harry was ready. 200 past lives had prepared him for this moment, and this time, he would not face it alone. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.